Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer 40K podcast. Today's episode, as you've seen, is the High Lords of Terra. It's going to be a wild episode learning about, political drama and theater and who really runs the Imperium. But we got our own High Lords of Terra here joining us for the first time on main episodes, introducing Grimaldus. Hey, welcome.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. You've done a couple call-ins, and I'm like, I like what that guy has to say. And then just the other day, we did like a role-playing session together that was a lot of fun and just got to kind of get to know you better as a person.
That's unfortunate for you.
Yeah, thankfully, I got to know the fake version of you and not the real you, and we'll see if I like that one more than the real you. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And also joining us for the first time, but not his first time calling in, is Nemo Forever. Welcome.
I came here to commit lore crimes.
Oh god. Well, thankfully we are the High Lords of Lorehammer, so we are at the top of the hierarchy and no one can overthrow us. Maybe Lorehammer Legal might have some words at the end of this show, but ultimately they're a little bitch, so it's fine.
But what about the lore boy heresy?
The lore boy heresy. Oh yeah, I don't like it anytime somebody says the word boy. It just gives me shivers on the internet. Unless it's, yo, boys, but singular, you're looking for trouble. Anyways, let's do some quick housekeeping before we get into the episode. We are doing some Discord stuff. Grimaldus and some other people have been wanting to put together a tabletop simulator, so that's been kind of cool. I know you've gathered a handful of people. Where are you at with that?
Right now I got 5-6 people, myself not included in that list. So still looking for more people to join in. We don't really want to start it until we have about 10 people or more. All fun to prize for us, and it's probably either going to be round robin or ladder.
Yeah, that sounds super cool, man. Like just battling it off on tabletop simulator, army versus army. I keep wanting to play, but I just don't want to learn the rules. But I hear 10th edition's pretty easy.
Yeah, they made it pretty simple for any layman to come in and play. But definitely shortened up a lot of the battle times. And if you're playing on tabletop, you can cancel it at any time and come back.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Okay, so you don't have to do it all in one session. And yeah, maybe if you have 9 people, I'll be that 10th, or I'll be like a surprise round. Like, oh, you think you won the tournament? Wrong! I'm coming in to steal the prize money. Yeah, so go check out our Discord. We have lots of cool stuff happening there, and lots of ways to just get involved, or even if you just want to post pictures of your latest project. Yeah, lots of stuff happening on the Discord. Links are in the description below.
And then I'd like to get into join the Imperial Tithe, help support the show. Marks has to feed his family. There's ad-free versions on Spotify for $2.50, where you can get the video version and see our lovely faces for $5. Now, there is one-time donations, so you can find that link down low and throw Mark a Christmas gift.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be very nice. Throw us all a couple extra bucks this Christmas season. The one cool thing I did a couple weeks ago was, if you don't want to listen on Patreon, I do have an RSS feed like for Spotify available. So if you go to Patreon, you can still listen to the ad-free version on Spotify. You don't have to listen through the Patreon catalog. So that's been very cool to get up and running. We also live stream. Yeah, you can come join the show. You can join the Patreon. You get access to a live stream. We have a chat room going right now. People filling in messages. Jax is talking about, after 20 minutes of battle, I finally won the TTS tournament. And then Mark steps in and says, this is what I call an Erebus, as I steal all the prize money and glory. So look forward to that. The chat room, it's very fun. Like, I met you two guys through the chat room. So I think that's definitely the pipeline of, if you ever want to be on the show, start interacting in the chat room, start getting your name out in the Lorehammer community, and eventually you too can come on the show. Yeah, very cool. Let's dive into this episode. As I said earlier, the topic is the High Lords of Terra, an organization that has been around for 10,000 years and going strong. Each year they add and assassinate another member, so that's very nice. The political drama of it all is like House of Cards, except dialed up to 11, as all things at 40k often are. Let's dive into the notes and see where this takes us. The High Lords of Terra, known also as the 12, constitute the August Senatorium Imperialis, the ruling council of the Imperium of Man. Formerly 4 seats in the days of the unification, the Senatorium grew with the Great Crusade's border. The formidable assembly is composed of 12 preeminent leaders in the Imperium's most powerful adepta, each representing a critical arm of the Imperium. For much of the imperial history, they have governed as a collective oligarchy, wielding their authority in the name of the Emperor of Mankind. Charged with executing the monumental task of governing the Imperium, the High Lords of Terra claim to interpret and enact the Emperor's divine will. Their ranks among the highest in the Imperium confers unparalleled political power and influence. It is funny because they do all this and they pretend they know what the will of the Emperor is, but oftentimes I don't think they really, I don't think the Emperor would be too pleased with what they're actually up to. Beyond strange miracles, the Emperor no longer directly rules his dominion. The High Lords of Terra asserts that they embody his immortal will, ensuring that the Imperium is ruled in accordance with his divine purpose. Despite the vastness of the Imperium and the impossibility of central governance, their decrees shape the fates of trillions across the galaxy. Throughout the age of the Imperium, the Senatorium Imperialis has been presided over by a chair who oversees as the first among equals, bearing the titles of Lord Commander of the Imperium and Imperial Regent. Today, the role is held by the Primarch Reboot Gilliman. The first Imperial Regent, though, was Malkador and the Emperor himself. Yeah, so the Imperial Senatorium, the Senatorium Imperialis, it's quite the body of organization. And, every planet has its own governing body, but ultimately they all will follow the orders of the High Lords. There's a couple very specific powers that the High Lords themselves have access to, like founding an Astartes chapter where only they can do that, or governing or bossing around the Inquisition and stuff like that. But ultimately, they will write stuff down and it will get filtered down through all the imperial planets. And they care more about big stuff, like their big picture government. They're not necessarily concerned about what you do on a Sunday. They're more like, make sure you fulfill your imperial ties. These are the things that you need to kind of accomplish for a planetary scale.
Something we're definitely worth mentioning is that when the Crusade first kicks off, this isn't a humanity that has in recent memory had any knowledge on how to rule, how to manage, not just from an interplanetary sense, but between sectors, between different corners of the galaxy. We're talking about an Imperium that lost so much that there was even a rehabilitation program done by the Emperor to just recover the human genome because the rad wastes and just the very friendly, unfriendly things that humanity was up to that wasn't quite Eldar scale, but we're getting there. We're getting there. It left its mark. It left its tie, and it doesn't exactly lead people that are incredibly competent for governance. So as a result, one of the things that the heresy legions had the point of is they'd quite often point out that these humans, they don't know what the hell they're doing. It's an iterative process of them figuring it out. So we start off with a seat of just 4 High Lords right at the beginning. Then this is the number of seats we have now, which is considerably more than 4. That wasn't something that existed before.
Yeah, exactly. Like you had Terra, which was a planet of techno barbarians, not known for their etiquette and knowledge and formal practices. And it gets conquered, and still the population consists of techno barbarians. And yeah, like you said, the Senatorium grows and grows and expands, and we have the High Lords. There's also lesser lords that we'll eventually talk about. And yeah, what an organization of just trial and error. And even when they fail, no one can stop them. They're at the head of this massive machine, so they just keep trying until they succeed.
Yep, they got to get that spearhead in, and away they go. But we're going to jump into the history. So we're going to start off with the Great Crusade. The High Lords of Terra stand as the ultimate governing authority of the Imperium of Man, entrusted with interpreting the emperors and enforcing his rule across the galaxy, vast Imperium. At the command, the fleets of the Imperium mobilize armies, march monumental ilids, such as the foundation of Space Marine chapters are deceased. Their orders are set to grim tides of the Adeptus Astartes, telepathic black fleets into the motion, ensuring that flesh tides of psychers is gathered as dictated by Imperium law. Holy shit. The Senatorium Imperialis reflects echoes of ancient humans' governance, mirroring eras before the Imperium's birth. During the early days of the age of the Imperium, the Emperor himself ruled directly, supported by his War Council, a group of critical advisors that included the Fabricator General of Mars, Pasadova of the Navigator Houses, and the indomitable Malcador Sigillite, his greatest allies during the Unification Wars of Terra. When the Emperor departed Terra to lead the Great Crusade, he entrusted Malcador to act as his regent and proceed over the newly established council in Terra. Over the course of the Great Crusade, the Emperor reclaimed the galaxy, freed humanity from countless chains. He rediscovered the lost Primarchs and integrated them into his plans. So, as the Crusade expanded in scope, the Emperor learned heavily on his War Council. After the decisive victory at Ulanord Crusade, when humanity's resurgence seemed assured, placed by the military campaign under the leadership of the War Master Horus, withdrawing to Terra, he, on a monumental new phase of the Imperium's creation, a human variant of the Eldari webway.
Yeah, this is a tale very familiar. We've all heard the story of the Great Crusade and kind of what happened, and the Emperor goes back, starts working on his secret project while the Primarchs they all go on and continue forth. But it was around this time too that they started to found like, okay, the Emperor needs to actually now he has a lot of this empire. He's consolidated a lot of the galaxy. Now he needs to start to organize some law, some organization to it. So the Adeptus Terra, the High Lords, are finally founded.
You have to have some code to keep man in order.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Oh, well, so one of the things we got to also know is that at all stages of the Imperium, the ability for the High Lords to act is limited by the information they have access to. And this is with us already knowing that the Imperium really sucks at keeping records. Good luck with that communication when you got astropaths, where how they feel about a color is a part of their, I forget what the word is, but their textbook for understanding the various meanings of the astropathic messages. So they have that. They have maybe whatever archaeotech is poorly understood that it's been kept by either the Imperium or the Mechanicus in terms of communication, especially over interstellar distances. Like what they can actually do, it means nothing if they don't know something's going on.
Sure. Yeah. And like the galaxy is a big place, man. Even with astropathic messages being fired across, like you have to do it's a big game of telephone tag because you don't have one astropath that can fire it from one end of the galaxy to the other. They have to send it from choir to choir to choir. So each one adds its own little interpretation. One guy might add 1-0 or take away a 0 on a number, and that might just fuck up everything.
I mean, that's exactly what happened on that book, 15 Hours. Sent a whole battleship to the wrong place, 200 guys wiped out.
Just another stay in the Imperium.
And if you have an astropath that's capable of that, this is a warp witch. Would you even trust them if they have that kind of sheer power to reach across galaxies? Like, what does that do to a person's mind if they could?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like we didn't even mention that, these messages might be intercepted by demons who then replace the voice and be like, ha 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 ha, put their demon voice in and their demon plans at play too. So not only to have to put the messages farther and farther, you actually have to battle off demons who are trying to sully your message.
Absolutely. In this period, the Emperor determined that the Imperium could no longer be ruled directly by him or solely by the Primarchs. To ensure the governance, he established the Council of Terra, tasking it with managing civilian affairs and the administrative burdens to minor to require his direct intervention. Meanwhile, the War Council, led by Horus, retained authority solely over the military direction of the Great Crusade. The Council of Terra rise sparked significant resentment amongst the Primarchs. chafing and ceded control of the Imperium's direction to claim inferior, weaker, ignorant, mortal administratums deemed far beneath their own capabilities. This simmering concept grew as one of the many grievances that festered within the traitor legions, paving the way for the corruption of chaos and their individual betrayal of the Emperor.
Yeah, that's a nice setup for the High Lords. Like I said, the Great Crusade, it's coming to an end. They got most of the galaxy. Now that you have control, you gotta start a governing body. But it always doesn't end up so well, there's always a hiccup in your plan. And enter in Horus and what he ends up doing.
Well, when you have an empire that's so wide, you can't really see what the left hand's doing compared to the right. It's maybe it's a bit more of that tangent on information I had before, but who's to say that someone really is making their, well, here's me being that Mechanicus bias, but saying their machine prayers the right time, the right number of times. Who's to say that for even bigger political things?
And understanding too, like there's a lot of stuff, like just imagine you're going out to conquer the galaxy, and every planet that you come across, they speak a different language and they have a different culture, and now you're trying to integrate them, and they have their own customs and they have their own. You give one culture a handshake, and it's all well and good, and you give the next one and it's a sign of warfare. So all this information is like trying to get collected and bound together, and it would just be a near impossible task. So jump into the Horus Heresy.
In the wake of the Horus Heresy, the Senatorum Imperialis emerged as one of the Imperium's primary executive authorities, succeeding the Council of Terra. This transformation was a cornerstone of the reforms initiated by Lord Commander Rabute Gilliman, who joined the Senatorum Imperialis and assumed command over the entirety of the Imperial Armed Forces. By the early 32nd millennium, the rise of the Imperial Creed and the cult of the Savior Emperor as the Imperium state religion solidified the Ecclesiarchy of the Adeptus Ministorum as a permanent member of the Senatorum, making a profound shift in the council's composition. And might be worth making a note here that when you consider the previous understanding of the imperial truth, the fact that the imperial creed in only a couple millennium made its way with a representative on its own to High Lords of Terra, that's kind of nuts. That didn't take long. If you guys want to comment.
Yeah, no, that really is quite quick. And just for those who don't know what the Imperial Creed is, it's just like the code of the Emperor, where science and reason will prevail, and it's kind of the highest tier of belief, where a lot of the false idols and false beliefs, and even just superstitious beliefs, were kind of cast aside, and yeah, science was kind of put at the forefront.
Yeah, it's just like anything, you come in, new body comes in, says, this is what we're doing, this is how we're laying down the law. Instinctually, at least for myself, I always want to go against the grain. So, I mean, makes sense why a whole lot of other individuals jumped on that too.
And like it's easy to kind of believe in, like, man, it's tough to believe in the unknown. So somebody comes and says like, "Oh yeah, don't worry, like there's no proof of other gods out there. You don't need to worry yourself with that. Like here's some science, like 1+1 = 2. We can all get on board with that." Like it's easy to kind of put your faith in that kind of system all of a sudden.
And then you get the Chaos Warp Spawn just wandering on your bridge with too many teeth, too many asses, and too many smiles.
We don't talk about the Chaos Warp Spawn, though. That doesn't exist in Science and Reason land.
You guys can't see it if you don't have access to the Patreon, but Grim might have some subversive tattoos. In the 32nd millennium, Gog Vandire, master of the Administratum, seized the imperial seat of power through the Senatorum, plunging the Imperium into chaos during his infamous reign of blood. When the existing High Lords demanded accountability and called for Vandire's execution, Vandire dissolved the Senatorum Imperialis outright, branding the Space Marines, the Astartes, and the Adeptus Mechanicus, and the opposing lords as traitors to the Imperium. Ultimately, Vandire's rule ended in betrayal by his own bodyguards, the Brides of the Emperor, later known as the Adeptus Sororitas. Their defection came after loyalist forces, led by the reformist Ecclesiarchy priest Sebastian Thor, launched an invasion of Terra to depose Van Dyer and restore order. And also a quick side note there. The Golden Boys, the Custodies, they also played a bit of a pivotal role there, just in case there's any fanboys that will be salty if we don't mention them.
Yeah, they let people in, made sure they were able to see the correct people to get the right information to then behead Goj Van Dyer.
With Van Dyer's death, the Senatorium Imperialis was reconstituted, and the High Lords of Terra regained their authority. However, sweeping reforms followed, including the establishment of Ordo Hereticus of the Inquisition, ensuring that no single individual could rise again to challenge the Emperor, or at least the High Lords, supremacy as the ultimate ruler of mankind.
And then we jump forward again. We've kind of just getting a very big overview of them over the years, and we jump forward to the era Indominus the next time the High Lords of Terra take a big shift.
Yeah, and with where we are here now in the time of, we haven't just reached the point where the imperial truth has been put to the side, because this is a time when there still are a great number of, not legions, but chapters in living memory who remember what the imperial truth is. You have something like the Black Templars. Those are an anomaly where they quickly embrace the Emperor's tarot, I'm pretty sure. But in terms of seeing the Emperor not as mankind's visionary, guiding, Godfather style leader or really weird glowing uncle, no, to them he's a god.
Yeah. By this time, for sure, definitely, like that imperial creed has far been removed and replaced with the Ecclesiarchy of religion and all that kind of good stuff.
And now we have a reiteration where it's not just integrated, but now you have Ordo Hereticus. The Inquisition didn't exist until after the Emperor was interred to the Golden Throne as a stopgap to the new reality they were living in. And now you have the enforcement of this as part of the Inquisition with the seat on the High Lords of Terra. That's nuts.
I wonder if there's ever been a High Lord of Terra who was an Inquisitor, or is that normally saved for a specific guy? Maybe that'd be interesting to find out at some point. But yeah. So we jump to the era Indominus. Following Reboot Guilliman's resurrection during the Ultramar campaign of the 13th Black Crusade in 999 M41, the Primarch returned to Terra amidst the Terran Crusade to reclaim his mantle as Lord Commander of the Imperium and Imperial Regent for the second time since the Horus Heresy. In asserting his authority, Guilliman replaced 5 of the High 12 of the Senatorium Imperialis and dismissed hundreds of lesser nobles from the ranks of the Terran aristocracy. There's that reading ability. I know that fucking word, but I'm not going to re-say it. Reshaping the Imperium's power structure. Under Guilliman's leadership, the High Lords of Terra now function as advisors and administrators of their respective dominions. For the first time in millennium, the Imperium operates under centralized authority of a single figure, rather than the fractious rule of the oligarchies. This reformation brought a rare unity to the Imperium as it entered the era Indominus and launched the Indominus Crusade, a level of cohesion unseen for centuries. Yeah, that is interesting. Like, Reboot Guilliman, he is known for being like this master administration guy. The planet he was from, like, he was able to kind of reunite that and then go and build an empire of 500 worlds, which he was really the only Primarch who built an empire. All the other ones, yeah, they would conquer their planet, but that was kind of it. Where he went out and he reconquered a bunch. But even him, like, just imagine one guy, Primarch or not, mastering and trying to understand a million different worlds, and it would still just be a nightmare and a clusterfuck of stuff. The unity was not born of mere ambition, but necessity. The birth of the Great Rift and the darkness of the Noctis Eterna demanded Guilliman's unparalleled organizational skill and steadfast governance to give humanity a fighting chance at survival. Yet even his return could not fully silence the ever-present discord of the Imperium's upper echelons. Guilliman faced resistance from planetary governors over his decree to restore the realm of Ultramar to its ancient span of 500 worlds. Many governors refused to honor long-forgotten treaties or outright denied their planets had ever been a part of Ultramar. By the Battle of Rakaus, which concluded the first phase of the Indominus Crusade 12 years after its initiation, only 3/4 of the pre-heresy ultramarine worlds had been brought back under Guilliman's dominion. In navigating these challenges, Gilliman also acknowledged the importance of maintaining the Adeptus Mechanicus autonomy, as enshrined in the ancient Treaty of Mars. He avoided interfering with the tech priest's doctrines, understanding that any affront to their beliefs risked inciting a catastrophic schism. Yeah, you don't want to, like, we've talked many times about how the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Imperium were actually two separate entities. They're two separate nation states, or what? Not nation states, but two separate factions. And they were kind of joined together at the Treaty of Mars. So even Gilliman is aware of this kind of. You don't want to step on the Mechanicum's toes too much. You still want to give them what they want, because ultimately we still need them. And to start a war with them, that would be a fucking huge war that no one would win.
Well, yeah, and then you also have, damn it, what's his name with your favorite type of Astartes, Mark?
Yeah, Belisarius Call.
Belisarius Call.
Yeah, he respected their autonomy up to, because it's really underrated that he didn't make Call the Fabricator General. Like, that definitely feeds into this.
Yeah. Why do you think he didn't make him general? Like, just didn't want to give him too much power, or like?
Well, it's just here. I mean, if he's gonna, like, normally the Fabricator General is like an internal appointment as far as the Mechanicus is concerned, but now they're an Adeptus. They're actually they're closer integrated into the Imperium now more than ever.
Sure.
But Call was brought in. He brings in all this technology. We have Marines that we have no idea where they came from. They have a disgusting quantity and quality of war gear, which is into itself priceless. We have no idea how or where it came from. But he did stop short of interfering in Mechanicus affairs. I didn't want to mention that.
Yeah, for sure. In navigating these challenges, Gilliman also acknowledged the importance of maintaining the Adeptus Mechanicus' autonomy. Oh, I read that one. When the Archmagus Dominus Belisarius Call repeatedly sought the title of Fabricator General of Mars, Gilliman refused, citing the limits of his authority. He recognized that such an appointment would ignite a Martian civil war, as many unorthodox adherents of the cult Mechanicus viewed Call's devotion in innovation as dangerously heretical. In this, as all his actions, Gilliman's choices reflected the delicate balance required to preserve the Imperium's fragile unity amidst a galaxy teetering on the brink of chaos. And yeah, that makes sense, man. Like, I've said this many times. Call is a fucking heretic, man. He comes out, and not only does he make new technology, which is forbidden, like, did he even apply the WD-40, the sacred oil? He also improves on the Emperor's design with Primaris Marines. And I'm sure a lot of people looked at him like, whoa, we have 10,000 years of structured history here and way of doing things, and you're going to come in and just, upend it all. So yeah, probably a smart move on Gilman's part, not to put him in charge and like really just kind of create that schism.
Because to the Mechanicus, when you have things like the organs of the Astartes themselves, each of them are fantastically complex. It may take maybe one tech priest's lifetime to gain any mastery of how to treat its ailments and do repairs, especially on the genome side to prevent the genetic corruption that so many legions are infamous for. No, it's information itself can be like a temple, and now you have a level of innovation that was treated as heretical during the heresy.
Yeah. I like that. Information can be treated like a temple. Yeah, man. Like, knowledge is power. Guard it well. Like, if you know how things work, you're going to be the most powerful person.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Upon the resurrection of Gilliman, didn't he appoint Belisarius Call, or at least allow him to further, or at least start, if not further, his Primaris Marine project?
Yeah, he definitely gave like the approval or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that approval was given like 10,000 years ago. Back when, like, Call is an old character. This happened long ago, and then all the Primaris Marines were put into stasis field.
But yeah, as far as that's concerned, well, who knows where Call's rightful authority really does begin or where it ends? What do you think, Grim?
Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to say. Like, I do very much like the stagmented environment that 40k has. Once again, I always come back to it as a setting than a story. But it is fun to spice it up, and it did bring more to it, and obviously furthering said story brings more people into the hobby.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the Great Chamber of Centaurum Imperialis. The Great Chamber of the Centaurum Imperialis stands as a monumental hall within a vast imperial palace on Terra, the world or the throne world of humanity. This sacred temple, the original seat to the Imperium authority, serves as a parliament of the Imperium, a forum where the 12 High Lords of Terra convene to wield their immense power, capable of holding 1,000,000 souls. It is most iconic meeting place for the Senate. The chamber is structured as a vast colosseum, with a central dais upon which the High Lords sit, ruling the fate of the Imperium from the exalted position. At the command of Reboot Gilliman, the towering statue of Rogel Dorn was raised on the eastern end of the hall, a tribute to the Primarch who helped shape the Imperium's foundation. While the Great Chamber remains the most renowned gathering place for the High Lords of Terra, it is not the sole venue. The Lords often deliberate in smaller, more private locations, where the weight of their decisions is felt whispered in reverence. Yet the grandeur of the hall, its Colosseum scale, and deep significance ensures it remains in the heart of the Imperium power, a symbol of the authority and unity of the fractured galaxy. During the early days of the Siege of Terra, it served as a symbol defiance endured, where the Council of Terra met to maintain an appearance of governance and stability amidst the chaos. Though the battle left the chamber grievously damaged, it was restored to its former glory by mid M32. The halls once again echoing the weight of the Imperium decisions. It endures its walls steeped in legacy of countless monuments, a political mechanicum, and remains an unyielding testament to the power of the Imperium of the High Lords who govern it.
Yeah, what a cool building this would be, man. Just this massive structure. Everything on Terra is already so big, you know. This is just a huge room with I forget what she said the number was, could hold over 1,000,000 souls just kind of all looking over the proceedings and stuff. Um, and there'd be servitors flying with those speakers projecting sound to the back of the room and stuff. All the banners on the walls of all the different conquered empires or different High Lords of Terra and their organization. Like, this would just be the coolest looking place.
Just think the Star Wars Senate, but like multiply that by a good couple million.
And add a bunch of skulls and like actually cool details and not this like sleek look. Like it would be like this Baroque, Gothic look. Yeah, it'd be so cool.
Yeah.
This might be a bit apocryphal, and I'm not 100% sure about the legitimacy of what I'm about to say, but allegedly, they were saying that at one point there was the dream of both the Emperor and Malkador to have some sort of democracy ruling over the Imperium where each world got a representative, which is why this Senate chamber had the capacity of 1,000,000 or more and had that technology. And allegedly, Malkador used that big psyker brain to figure out a sort of system where it wouldn't just be an endless wave of voices. There was an actual way to organize the voices, the thoughts, the information, the proposals, no matter the size of the proposal, into something coherent.
And no matter the language.
Oh yeah, because like there's so many variations of Low Gothic, and language does get corrupted over time and space.
Yeah, it's crazy. Even just like, to bring it to real life, like we make fun of Zoomers, and I don't know what the fuck skib dibbity is or whatever the fuck they're saying. Half the time they open the mouth, I don't know what they're saying. And they're only a couple years younger than me. So just imagine across all the different worlds, like to try to unify that. But that's a cool concept through like psychic means and stuff. You might be able to kind of dial it in and hone it in a little bit more. All right, so one of the big bads of the High Lords of Terra is the Imperial Regent. The title of the Imperial Regent, also known as Lord Regent, Imperator Regis, or Regent of Terra, is one of the most esteemed and powerful within the Imperium, granted only to the most exceptional circumstances. It is a position second only to the Emperor himself, its bearer regarded as a living voice of the Emperor, embodying his will across the Imperium. Though its scope may overlap with what the Lord Commander of the Imperium, the role of the Imperial Regent extends beyond the purely military, encompassing the vast civic authority and governance over Terra itself. In times when the Imperium requires a guiding hand, the Imperium Regent is the unchallenged figurehead commanding both respect and fear across the galaxy. The post of the Imperial Regent is shrouded in mystery and reverence, often seemed as an emblem of the Emperor's enduring will, particularly after his withdrawal from the Great Crusade. This retreat, as he focused on his own secret and I fucking hate that word, enigmatic projects, left Terra in need of a leader to maintain the authority of the Imperium. To safeguard such a position, the Imperial Regent has historically been assigned a personal guard of the Emperor's elite warriors, the Adeptus Custodes, ensuring that no challenge to his voice could go unanswered. In this role, the Imperial Regent is both a symbol of the Emperor's enduring presence and a powerful ruler in his own right, directing the Imperium's vast bureaucratic and military might of the Emperor's steed. In the Emperor's steed. So the very first regent was Malcador, and it's the voice of the Emperor. This is not always appointed. There's not always an Imperial Regent. It's the second highest position, and only truly the trusted. If not for Malcador, if not for Primarchs, I don't think this position would ever be filled.
Ersatz is saying in the chat there, Hugo Weaving. I think he'd make a perfect, what do you say, Imperial Regent.
Okay.
We're going to go into the Lord Commander of the Imperium. The title of Lord Commander of the Imperium represents a pinnacle of military authority. Within the vast, unyielding hierarchy of the Imperium of Man, the power is rivaled only by the Emperor himself, originally held by the Primarch Rogel Dorn. During the
Tumultuous,
okay, thank you. The title was later succeeded to Reboot Guilliman, who would transform his meaning and reshape the fate of the Imperium. After the heresy, Guilliman assumed command of the Imperium armed forces, uniting them under his rule, and using the title to stabilize the Imperium and initiate the reforms that would define his legacy. He became the first and only figure in the Imperium history to control entirely of the war machine, which had previously been overseen by the War Council. The Lord Commander of the Imperium was elevated to one of the High Lords of Terra, symbolizing the supreme command over the military matters of the Imperium. Even after the grievous wounds of Reboot Guilliman at the hands of Fulgrim, the title proceeded, which its holder continuing to serve as both the chairman and the High Lords of Terra, and the supreme commander of the Imperium's military might. Guilliman's name became synonym with the position in which often referred to as simple as Lord Guilliman in honor of the Primarch. The title, however, was officially abandoned by the 41st millennium, having endured until M32. During this time, figures such as Udine Mach Undo and the chapter masters Corland and Maximus Thane held the title. Through the ultimacy fell into disguise of the aftermath of the War of the Beast and the beheading. Yet in a twist of the fate of the Imperium staggered under the weight of many trials. The resurrection of Reboot Guilliman returned to Terra, reclaiming his place of Lord Commander, once again assuming the mantle of leadership over the Imperium's military forces.
Yeah, and it's really nuts because what makes so much of this exceptional, especially Guilliman himself taking this leadership position over all of the might of the Imperium, especially as an Astartes, because we have a history of both not only the Astartes themselves, but the Primarchs themselves being very susceptible to heresy. With that knowledge already in place across all of the meaningful facets of the Imperium's leadership, he steps forward, and now we have these groups that are usually completely separate commands. I'm not talking just, this is my jurisdiction, this is your jurisdiction. I'm talking entirely different branches of nobility, of imperial law, or if an inquisitor sees, I don't know, an asshole like Gaunt going and being a general and a commissar at the same time, that's a bit of a big deal. Now we got Guilliman doing everything at once. The Navy is usually separate from the Guard, from the Astartes, the Titans. And that's to say nothing about the various specialized brands of the Titans themselves. There's side Titans out there, if you believe that lore. if you believe that canon. And those things are genuine abominations in front of all things, both reasonable and holy. Because if you thought the penitent machines were messed up, Psi Titans are nuts. And that's just the Titanicus corner.
Yeah, it is crazy. Like Purge said, Lord Commander seems like War Master. Like this is a very powerful role, and it's martial focused, where the Imperial Regent, it's more civic duty and like civic responsibility and doing, that kind of governance. This is like leading all the armies together, bringing all these powerful factions into one spot and trying to kind of get them to all work together. And he does do it successfully too.
If you got nothing, Grim, I'll jump into the members of the council.
Yeah, let's continue along here.
The Chancellor of the Imperial Council, or the Chancellaris Senatorum Imperialis in High Gothic, stands as the chief bureaucrat of the Senatorum Imperialis. This title, though not a formal seat among the High Lords, holds immense power and influence, for it places the Chancellor at the very heart of imperial governance. So this is a position of influence like you'll see very few of in the Imperium. As a primary administrator for the Senatorum Imperialis, the Chancellor is the silent architect behind its operations, navigating the corridors of power with an experience born of their unique access to the highest echelons of imperial leadership. Their role is one of subtle control, a quiet but unwavering presence in the machinery that governs the Imperium. While the Chancellor is not a member of the High Lords, their influence is inexorable. Their position affords them unparalleled insight and authority, shaping the decisions of those who truly wield the Imperium's power. They stand as a bridge between the ruling elites of the Imperium, the vast bureaucratic apparatus that sustains it, thus ensuring that the will of the Emperor is translated into the endless flow of paperwork, decrees, and directives. In this inscrutable role, the Chancellor is both a servant and master, the unseen force that ensures the Imperium continues to function with relentless precision, its vast bureaucratic machine ever turning under their guidance.
Yeah, I like this kind of position where it's not like a position of glory. And in fact, you wouldn't want to put somebody who's kind of in that kind of. You don't need a charismatic figure for this rank. It's just as much paperwork and just making sure things flow smoothly, making sure all the logistics line up, making sure all the T's are dotted, all the I's are crossed, as they say.
Even in the Imperium, I mean, you got to have some paper pushers. As much as we all hate them, they play a major part in this particular setting.
I get Assassinorum vibes from this, but instead of Master of Blades, Master of Poisons, Master of wearing a skull and just murdering people, no, it's Master of Pencils.
Master of Pencils. Yeah, but the pen is mightier than the sword. This guy can get anything he wants done. He's the one pushing every directive forward and doing all that kind of stuff.
Can you imagine the sheer insider trading this guy can get away with? He's literally the highest influential position on the High Lords. That's nuts.
Yeah. The Chancellor of the Imperial Council, stock picks. Follow him and you too can be rich.
Oh no, a new level of grifter. No.
No, the High Lords of Terra of grifters all the way down, I think. Here we go to the High Lord positions. Since the grim days of the Horus Heresy, the composition of the Senatorium Imperialis has remained remarkably consistent, its number of seats generally fixed at 12. While moments of crisis have occasionally seen this structure fluctuate, tradition invariably reasserts itself, restoring the council to its original form. Each seat is occupied by a leader drawn from the most powerful adepta or other key organizations of the Imperium. The selection process is governed by an intricate web of tradition, political maneuvering, mutual obligation, veiled threats, and calculations of shared interest. These forces determine who holds the powers and who is excluded. Certain adepta and institutions are so integral to the Imperium's functioning that it would seem inconceivable for the leaders to be excluded from the High Lords of Terra. Yet across the vast millennia, such exclusions have occurred. The High Lords in office have historically taken great pains to secure the preeminence of their positions, crafting elaborate measures to ensure that upon their death, their seat is automatically inherited by their organization's new leader. Despite occasional deviations, the Imperium's foundational institutions, the cornerstones of its vast power, are almost invariably represented on the Senatorium Imperialis. These roles are filled by individuals whose authority and influence are indispensable to the Imperium's survival. Though historical records differ in the exact enumeration of the senatorian's composition, certain possibilities are so vital that the occupants are essentially guaranteed a seat. 9 of these offices, tied to the most essential organizations of the Imperium, are always represented on the High Lords of Terra. And yeah, we'll get into each of these kind of crucial. There's kind of 3 branches of the. Well, there's a couple more than that. There's maybe 4, we'll say, of the High Lords. There's kind of the upper echelons. That's the Imperial Regent. That's that Chancellor dude. That's the Lord Commander. And then we get into the High Lords of Terra that have a position at all times kind of on it. And then we have kind of a fluctuating list of chairs. And then we have lesser lords that, while they're on the council, they're not necessarily a High Lord. So the first up, we have the Master of Administratum.
Yeah. So imagine how much of a bastard you got to be at being good at your job to even make it onto the High Lords, let alone a high rank in any of the Adeptus. Any of them. Yeah. Now, you're the meanest of them all. You're at the very top. And what's more is that with this position right there, you're the guy who's the referee. And you didn't get there by being fair.
Yeah. And the other scary part about this is, yeah, you got there that way. But all the people you're dealing with also got there that way. So you're also dealing with the smartest, most craftiest, possibly malicious, possibly whatever. They're all there too because they're just on the same level as you.
And it's more than even that on top of that. Hey, it's 40K. It gets worse. Imagine how many rejuvenate treatments these buggers have gotten themselves.
Yeah.
Imagine how many centuries of just backstabbing that would give the long dead Necron a Necron tier stiffy.
Yeah. Harder than Necrodermis.
It almost puts us humans almost to the point where we're going to birth our own god with just how much conniving is happening within the High Lords of Terra. Not saying that it would happen, but have enough centuries of this, 10,000 years of this corruption. Certainly, there's going to be something else that comes forward.
For sure.
So we'll get into the Master of Administratum. The Master of Administratum is an enigma, an unseen hand that pulls the strings of the vast bureaucratic empire that sustains the Imperium, sitting on the apex of a sprawling network, records, decreases, and logistics. The Master holds dominion over the Administratum, the heart of the Imperium's bureaucracy. This position commands unfaithful amount of influence, for the decisions made within the chamber affect every aspect of Imperium life. From the movement of soldiers across the galaxy to the locations of scarce resources, the Master ensures mechanicums of the Imperium continue to grind forward. Beneath the watchful eye, trillions of lives are cataloged, recorded, and manipulated in the name of the Imperium. The power lies not in grand displays or in the fields of battle, but yet quite cold, efficient, and unfathomable machine that functions solely to preserve the Imperium. Enduring and inscrutable, the Masters of the Administratum thrives the shadows of bureaucracy. Their decisions are final. Their alex shaped of the course of countless lives, often without those affected even knowing the source of their fate. At the highest levels of the Imperium, the Master of the Force unto themselves, bending the will of the masses and enforcing the Emperor's law throughout the cold lens of the Administratum. Their influences extend beyond immediate, and they will ensure that the gears of war and the machinery of the Imperium and the order of the Imperium society continue to turn long after the flames of war have been quieted. Their power is inevitability, shaping the fate of humanity from behind the veil of inscrutable paper and ritual.
Yeah, so just the master of paperwork, making sure everything's working.
That's pretty much the whole setup here. It's just everyone has to, be a bureaucrat, be a conniving little bastard.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like the Canadian government.
I gotta defend my favorite paper. Oh no! Oh wait! Why did you have to put it like that? I was gonna defend the paper pushers. Then he called them the Canadian government. Damn it! What makes this position important is the corpse starch, the lasguns, the uniforms. These are the guys who determine the who, what, where, when, why, and how. And I think of my favorite unofficial joke from within the guard is that at one point the Arbites lost not the Arbites, Freudian slip. At one point the Administratum lost the paperwork so hard that the reinforcements called to the next major work front were 100 years later. Their skeletons were dug out of their graves,
Ah,
put on the mass transports, sent over, much to the chagrin of the guardsmen at the front. And then it took another 100 years to figure it out.
yeah, and even then they didn't figure it out properly. Yeah, wouldn't that be just the worst? You're like, yes, finally, reinforcements have arrived. They just start rolling out caskets for the funeral procession. They're like, wait, I thought you ordered this. You're like, ah, yeah, or it goes into like, well, that's the master of administration. Womp womp.
I'm gonna bring it back to that book, 15 Hours. One of the characters talking about the Imperium had sent out prophylactics for them, um, based on them, being on frontline soldiers, and probably most of the male, at least every person in that, other than the nurses in that book, um, were male represents. So we know that they're not using these prophylactics on the orcs. Hopefully, not each other. Um, why are they sending these?
So if they do use it on each other, this is the grimdark for sure.
But why waste your gene or why waste your seed? We've talked about this before in previous episodes. If anything, that should.
No, yeah, send it to the Emperor's children for a favor. They'll appreciate it. Shall we continue? Oh, Mark, you gave me a nice one. I like this topic. I like it. The inquisitorial representative is an enigma within an enigma, a silent sentinel from the most secretive and powerful arm of the Imperium. As the official voice of the Inquisition and the Senate, they are both a shadow and a force. Attending the meetings of the High Lord is an agent of unspeakable power. And a quick little note here. The Inquisition has ranks within itself. You got your Inquisitor, then you got your Lord Inquisitor, who has power over sectors. Here, this is the Lord Inquisitor's boss across all the Ordos. And there's multiple Ordos, both Majoris and Minoris.
Yeah, the Minoris are pretty cool. There's a whole bunch of Minoris that we never really talk about. Lorehammer's talked about them in some episodes, but you don't often hear about like the Ordo Chronos that's in time of like timekeeping and shenanigans and stuff. There's a lot of cool ones.
Yeah, you can always blame the Ordo Chronos if something doesn't get there on time, and half the time you may even be right if you even knew the time.
What is time?
It's a human construct. It doesn't matter.
Then you have the angry Necron saying, "It's human, damn it!" It is said that the representative's sole purpose is to maintain the Imperium's fragile balance of power, ensuring that the darkest secrets of the Inquisition remain shrouded in mystery. They do not speak often, but when they do, their words carry the weight of untold lives, and their gaze pierces the hearts of those who would oppose the Emperor's will. Their loyalty lies not with any one faction, but with the Imperium itself, for it is their duty to safeguard the Imperium from internal threats, from corruption, and from heresy, no matter the cost. Mysterious and inscrutable, the inquisitorial representative is not one to be trifled with. The full scope of their authority is known only to a few, and their ability to move within the shadowed corridors of power means they can strike decisively when necessary, while others may wield their influence through power, politics, war, or faith. The Inquisitor's weapon is the unseen hand of the Emperor's judgment. This representative serves not only as a member of the Senatorum Imperialis, but as a reminder that the Imperium's survival hinges on the eternal vigilance of those who stand against the darkness, even when that darkness lurks in the heart of mankind itself.
Like very cool. Like this guy could be in charge of definitely going over the paperwork, making sure that the planets aren't going through some chaos uprising, then making sure that the right agents are sent to the right spots. Like, man, we really haven't heard from this sector in a while, or we have heard from, and all we get from the astropaths from that sector is just gibberish nonsense. Maybe we need to kind of investigate this, make sure everything's still kosher over there.
Lord General, why did you order 2 sets of prophylactics for your men?
Heresy.
The same reason why we ordered 2 bags, one to cover your head and one to cover theirs.
Oh, nice. Forward thinking, I suppose. Yeah, definitely a cool spot. The inquisitorial representative. Also, yeah, you really wouldn't want to ever take his attention. You know, if you're under his watchful eye, yeah, chances are good you fucked up somehow and it's not going to end well for you. Up next, we have the Ecclesiarch of the Adeptus Ministorum. The Ecclesiarch is the spiritual heart of the Imperium, a towering figure whose presence is felt in every corner of the galaxy. As the head of the Adeptus Ministorum, the Ecclesiarch's word is the voice of the Emperor's will, and their authority extends across the religious institutions that bind the Imperium together. Their role on the Senatorium Imperialis is not merely to offer counsel or support, but to ensure that the Emperor's divine light burns eternal in the hearts of humanity. The Ecclesiarch is not merely a religious leader, they are a pillar upon which faith of billion rests. In their hand, the fate of the Emperor's religion is held, and with it, the unity of the Imperium itself. They lead with a fierce devotion to the Emperor, often wielding influence that rivals the greatest military commanders and political leaders. For they command the loyalty of the masses in ways no mere mortal ever could. With the strength of their faith as their weapon, the Ecclesiarch shapes the destiny of the Imperium, forging unbreakable chains of belief that bind the galaxy's countless souls to the Emperor's divine will. Their voice resounds across the Imperium shrines and cathedrals, rallying the faithful to war, to devotion, and to sacrifice. They are the living embodiment of the Emperor's light in a dark galaxy, and their power extends far beyond the Senatorium Imperialis. Whether on the battlefield leading the Adeptus Sororitas or in the halls of the Imperial Palace, the Ecclesiarch's influence endures, shaping the very soul of the Imperium. Their inscrutable faith guides the Imperium, holding it together as it endures the ravages of time, war, and corruption. Yeah, this position's pretty cool. It's partly a counselor. You know, the other High Lords can go to it for like really deep matters and like what do you think the Emperor's will really is in this situation? Like, how do I best serve him? Or if they're having matters of faith, like, man, I'm just struggling with damning another billion souls of the Emperor to death here on this planet, on this backward world. It's like, don't worry, they're dying and they will join the Emperor in due time. And like, it's part counselor, but then also, you know, guiding the ecclesiarch. Like, is this the guy that's really setting which pillars of faith should be followed, which ones are old? It's a very powerful position, like, you know, space pope for sure.
Then you have the fact that if the Emperor's currency is blood, where else in the Imperium are you just going to just muster up a million faithful souls with the zeal to go pick up the lasguns, whether they're trained or not, to go rush that forward base, whether they have comms or not, to go and beat that guy's skull and whatever, regardless of if there's a senior NCO to coordinate it or not. This feels like a very black books position where a lot of things can be made to happen suddenly, quickly, in a very scratch way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, all he has to say is, well, it's the Emperor's divine will, and then all of a sudden, what do you do to argue against that? Now all of a sudden you do try to argue, and the inquisitorial representative is like, I don't think so. Now you're being watched. I think you might be committing heresy. Yeah, I like what you said. Like, this guy can make things happen just quick because no one can really rebuttal him.
Oh, if you want another little plug to that, there's the entire Vrax campaign and the influence the Ordo Hereticus and the Ecclesiarchy had over that. And to save you a rant to keep us from going too far over time, I'll just leave it there. But the entire Vrax campaign is an excellent inroad into that.
Cool. I'm gonna add that actually to my episode list. I always forget about that, but that's such a cool battle.
So we'll get into the Fabricator General. The Fabricator General is the High Priest of Knowledge, the guardian of ancient, inscrutable secrets that sustain the Imperium's technological edge. As the supreme leader of the Adeptus Mechanicus, they hold dominion over all the forges and laboratories that power the Imperium's mighty war machines, weapons of faith and unstoppable engines of destruction. Their positions in the Senatorium Imperialis is one of the absolute authorities for the Adeptus Mechanicus. It is a cornerstone of the Imperium's strength, their mastery over technology, and unchallenged. The Fabricator General's power flows from not political halls of Terra, but the furnaces like the forges on Mars, where the secrets of the machine god are kept. From here, they send forth products of their craft, ensuring that the Imperium's vast war machines is always well equipped to crush the enemies. Their loyalty lies to the Omnici, but their position within the Senatorium serves to maintain the fragile unity between the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Imperium's other factions. Imposing an insurrectable, the Fabricator General's true intentions are known only to the few that can understand the depth cryptid language of the machine god. Basically, just binary code.
Easy enough.
Yeah, pretty much. While their power is insequential, the matters of technology, their presence within the Senatorium is a reminder of the delicate balance of powers that hold the Imperium together. The Fabricator General is a figure of calculated neutrality, working to ensure their knowledge of their creations remains untouched by the whims of lesser politic forces. Their loyalty is to the Mechanicus and the Omnici, and they answer only to those understanding the machine's mysteries, rival as their own in the way that the Fabricator General represents the cold, eternal march of progress within the Imperium, an insecurable force that will endure long after powers have fallen away.
Yeah, not only does this guy have a seat, he also is the leader of that second wing of the Imperium, the whole Mechanicus. So this guy has got a lot on his plate, but it makes sense that he would be in this position.
So I thought I had read something somewhere that the current Fabricator General is actually a giant, basically computer. And when Reboot had taken basically command of High Lord or High Commander, did he not want to take him out just because the logistics of moving him off of Terra was astronomical?
Oh, damn, yeah, because the guy's a house. Or basically almost small scout ship sized, isn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Or I thought I had seen something like that.
Yeah, I do recall there being one who kind of was like that. I'll check if it is the Fabricator General.
It might have been one of them. Something also worth mentioning is that throughout the history of the Imperium, the Fabricator General of Mars, and what he represents, they're known to stay largely neutral in many imperial affairs, in the same way that, well, the two different sides, and they're not really supposed to be sides, but in reality they are. They approach very different ways of worship. They have very different values, very different systems of worship. Their understanding of the machines they use, like it's the difference between, hey, I'll go to this guy to get my las gun fixed, compared to, this is my machine altar. My job is my religion.
Yeah.
You could say they're almost orcish if orcs had brains.
And yeah, you were right there, Grim. Ode Odua Rakasan, the current Fabricator General, has taken enhancements to the ultimate extreme. As such, is the size of a building, needing bulk lifters to carry him to the colossal meeting chamber of the High Lords, where he towers over them. What a fucking funny concept, man! Just this building being kind of shipped around, and it's just this computing system. 0011 Yeah, perfect. I love it.
Yeah, you screwed up when the giant building takes issues with your current political stance.
Yeah. That building has like sentry cannons on it too and stuff. Like those servitors manning it.
The building is manufacturing the shells that it's firing at you as it's shooting.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Just unlimited feed. Fabricator General goes Bert.
Unlimited power!
Yeah, definitely probably one of the most powerful positions on the High Lords for sure.
Shall we then, gentlemen? The Grand Provost General of the Adeptus Arbites is the unyielding enforcer of imperial law, a figure who embodies the harshness and the justice of the Emperor's rule. As the Supreme Commander of the Adeptus Arbites, they are instruments of retribution, dispatched to quash rebellion, uphold order, and cleanse the Imperium of its heretics and traitors. Their role in the Senatorium Imperialis is one of cold authority, wielding the law as shield and sword. Which isn't to say that the other ones won't do it, but they got they're not Judge Dredd ripoffs for nothing. The Grand Provost Marshal ensures that no one is beyond the reach of the imperial justice, whether they are petty criminal in a backwater world or a high lord caught in treason. Their power is absolute, and their word is law. They answer only to the Emperor, enforcing his iron will with an iron fist. Where others may speak, The Grand Provost Marshal acts ensuring that the imperial throne remains steadfast and unyielding in its pursuit of justice, cold and inscrutable. The Grand Provost Marshal is a figure of inevitability. Oh man, I'm getting Matrix vibes from inevitability, Mr. Anderson. The will of the Emperor is carried out through their actions, and their authority transcends any other imperial force. While other factions may wield power in politics, war, or religion, the Provost Marshal ensures that order is maintained no matter the cost. Their presence in the Senate is a reminder that the Imperium is not just a realm of ideals, faith, and ambition, but one bound by law and retribution. In the endless march of time where all else may falter, the Grand Provost Marshal stands eternal, a figure both revered and feared, a guardian of order in a galaxy perpetually on the brink of chaos. So now I gotta ask you lads, do you think that they answer to the Inquisition more, or the Inquisition answers to them?
You know, when we did our Adeptus Arbites episode, we did learn that some of the few people in the entire galaxy that can actually like take an Inquisitor down is an Arbites, and that's just like even low level Arbites have the authority to be like that Inquisitor is breaking Imperial law, stop him. So yeah, no, I think this position has more power than the Inquisition guy. Like maybe more power is not the right word to say. But like if they were to go against each other, like if that Inquisitor is breaking Imperial law, he is in trouble.
Bringing it back to Judge Dredd, I know that every time Arbites comes up, this is always a topic. I actually happened to watch that today. Just the opening scene when that guy gets pulled over and he's already trying to bribe the cop, like no dice. He blows the car up. I imagine the Grand Provost Marshal not pulling that same card, but at least somewhere along those lines.
Purge says in the chat, depending on the action, if it is a matter of law or faith. Yeah, that's kind of a good way to say it. Like if you're breaking the law, the Arbites are going to get you. Where if you're breaking like some type of faith act, then the Inquisition's going to get you. And up next, we have the Paternoval Envoy of the Navigators. The Paternoval Envoy of the Navigators holds a position of profound influence within the Senatorium Imperialis, standing as the voice of the Navigators who chart the stars for the Imperium. As a representative of the Paternova, the head of the Navigator houses, the envoy carries with them the ancient and inscrutable traditions of power that controls the very fabric of the Imperium's interstellar travel. Navigators, with their uncanny ability to guide the vast starships of the Imperium throughout the Immaterium, are indispensable to humanity's survival and expansion. The envoy's role is not merely ceremonial, they are the embodiment of their people's sway over the fabric of space itself. A figure whose presence in the Senatorium ensures that the Navigator's vast power is neither ignored nor diminished. In their role, the Paternovals envoys' influence extends beyond the mere navigation of stars. Their family, the Paternova, has a long and bitter history, often bound by bloodlines, power struggles, and dangerous necessities of cooperation within the Imperium. The envoy speaks with the weight of generations behind them, representing a complex and fiercely protected institution. The Paternova may never leave the safety of their home in the Palace of Navigators, but the envoy's word holds dominion over the flow of humanity's greatest vessels through the warp. This enigmatic power, this essential role within the Senate, cannot be overstated. It is a legacy of power and influence that stretches from the ancient days of the Imperium to the very edge of the galaxy. It is one that remains as inscrutable as the stars themselves. Yeah, very cool to have the Navigators there as well, and it just shows how powerful they are. Like one of the most powerful branches for sure. If you can't transport stuff from one planet to another, whole planets, whole sectors die off. And I just imagine the power bids that this guy does. Like, well, I'm not going to give these guys access to my Navigators, and yeah, give it a week, and when they're not getting their food supplies, they're gonna come back to the table for renegotiation. The wealth that they'd be able to amass, the power that they would be able to amass just due to being able to control transportation is crazy.
And from that negotiation and from that power, you'll also see various skill levels of navigators be assigned to different forces. And you'll see the prestige of the force they're being assigned to also having an impact, because they are Navis Nobilitae. They're nobility of the Imperium. They'll gladly be navigators for a Titan Legion, for Legionis Astartes, or sorry, the Adeptus Astartes, chapter format there. They'll gladly They may not gladly be a navigator for Black Ship because it's covered in nulls and they are psychers themselves, but yeah, you got that.
Yeah, like the black ship's like a punishment position for sure. But yeah, isn't that interesting? Like, yeah, whether you're on an Astartes capital ship, battle cruiser, or you're on just your regular kind of transport freight, like these guys would have such varying positions. Um, yeah, you kind of mentioned that they're nobility, and it's very uh, sometimes when you think of nobility, you think of inbreeding and all that, and you got these creatures of such power, but they're also like deformed and hideous and often locked away from everyone else on the ship, and often they only feel comfort in like around their own kind, essentially. That guy has 8 fingers and 3 ears, like he's a fucking freak. No one likes him, but he's one of the most powerful people on the ship.
This is where the ultra nerding comes in, where I was holding back on making the Dune reference, but here we are for the Dune reference because the idea of a navigator house into itself really did come from there first, with enough originality to maybe, I guess, I'll leave it to the viewer to say how separate it really is. If we're looking at a Judge Dredd ripoff, or maybe something a little subtle, if GW can be subtle to save their lives. But yeah, like these are the guys with the third eye. These are the guys who directly peer into the warp. These are people who were dragged before the Emperor's throne, if memory serves, to be rooted so they could look into the warp without losing their minds and just becoming warp portals or warp spawns. These might be the least human humans you might find as far as sanctioned psychers are concerned without getting into Astartes.
Yeah.
Because I also don't think we'd have any Astartes navigators themselves. I'm pretty sure they are all baseline humans originally.
Yeah, like the Astartes gene seed would not meld with these guys. Just like why we don't see Ogren Astartes. It's like they're abhumans, man. They're too far removed from the genetic code, too far removed from the Primarch's code. It's also why we don't see female Space Marines, because there is a very specific genetic code you have to follow to become a Space Marine.
I was wondering if you're going to go there, and I'm glad you did.
Hey, man, I'll push it all day, every day, just so people don't fucking forget. All you tourists out there, don't you fucking forget it. But yeah, no, these are like mutants, man. They're abhumans, and they wouldn't. They got webbed fingers sometimes. It's such a weird position of power that they have for being such freaks.
Well, I mean, that's going to happen after, a good couple centuries, tens of thousand or 10,000 years of inbreeding. It's bound to happen.
Yeah, inbreeding and just like minor warp corruption as well. Like I wonder how much of that is like their genetic code itself has been slightly mutated from looking in the warp too much, not just the inbreeding.
Well, I mean, DMT does the same kind of thing, so I have that same issue.
So everyone, go get some DMT and let me know what happens if you turn into a mutant if you keep using it. That's your project.
Warhammer Legal does not encourage the use of prescribed substances.
No, they do not, but Mark does.
We're gonna move on to the Master of the Astronomicon. They're a figure of immense importance. They're positioned foundationally to the very survival of the Imperium, charged with overseeing the Astronomicon, an ancient and unyieldly beacon of psychic light that guides humanity's vast fleets through the treacherous warp. The Master ensures the Imperium starships can travel across the galaxy with a measure of safety. Isn't that really what the Gellerfield does, though? Like, doesn't that kind of help to a degree? Like, it doesn't guide them, but it protects them from the warp. It gives them that little bubble.
Yeah, but the astropaths also help power the Geller field to some degree, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I should do a little refresher on it. But yeah, if you're have protection from the warp, but you're just ultimately stuck in it and you can't get out, you're kind of hooped either way.
Yeah, fair enough. The Astronomicon itself is a force of incomprehensible psychic power, a beacon that must be maintained at all costs. For without it, the Imperium would just cast into darkness. Its fleets isolated and vulnerable to the horrors of the warp. The Master's role is one of immense responsibility. They control this lifeline to the stars, their decisions determining the fate of the entire fleets and by extension the fate of mankind itself. In truth, the Master of the Astronomicon is both revered and burdened. To maintain the Astronomicon is a task that demands sacrifice of countless psychers and their souls. Is it something like there has to be 10 psychers uh, next to the Golden Throne or something like that? Or am I way off?
More.
Okay, yeah, let's
Over time, it's increased.
Oh, okay.
I did find about that Geller field. It's not necessarily an astropath in there, but it is partly attached to a psyker. A comatose psyker is in those Geller fields. So
There you go. To maintain the Astronomicon is a task that deems the sacrifice of countless psychers, their souls consumed by the beacon insatiable need for psychic energy. The Master stands at the center of the storm, overseeing the endless stream of ritual and sacrifice. They hold power to sustain the Imperium's interstellar might, and yet might remain an enigmatic figure, cloaked in mystery and untold responsibility. Their decisions, though rarely seen, shape the destiny of the Imperium with each pulse of the Astronomicon. In their hands lies continued survival of humanity, and their actions, however, insecurable and irrevocable, tied to the fate of the Imperium's vast and ever expanding reach.
yeah, without them, no ships are traveling. Without the Astronomicon being powered, without it being fed, those 1,000 psychers a day. Yeah, that lighthouse, we'll go back to that warp analogy where ships are traveling through the ocean of the warp, and without that directional position of the Astronomicon, the lighthouse, you just end up adrift without any direction. Fuzz says, after 10,000 years, a psyker just doesn't provide the same high. Yeah, it's getting immune to it.
Yeah, man, like you got the people that are trying to say that the Emperor isn't a warp god, and I just don't buy it. He's on that adrenochrome, that psyker adrenochrome words, damn it. But how did we even get here?
Yeah, so you like to think he's a warp god, eh?
Like, he already was so much warp substance into one form. Can't even really call it a body. Two people look at him and they see something different. That ain't normal, man.
That ain't normal. Yeah, maybe that's a fucking argument we have for another day, but yeah, maybe he is a warp god, but we'd have to start by defining God.
Ooh.
Capital G or lowercase?
Oh god, here we go!
Can I use warp characters to spell it?
Yes, you can.
Unless any of you guys got any extra comments, we can get into the Officio Assassinorum.
I'm giving you all the good ones, eh?
Oh man, like you got me Jones in here for all these ones. The Grand Master of the Officio Assassinorum sits at the pinnacle of an organization steeped in shadow and death. Their role shaping unseen wars that define the very existence of the Imperium. The Officio Assassinorum is the Imperium's most deadly tool, an order of assassins trained to remove threats to the Emperor's rule with precision and ruthlessness. Grand Master is both a leader and an enigma, commanding the assassins who strike from the darkness, executing the most covert operations with a brutality unmatched by any force in the galaxy, other than the ones that they are matched by. Their orders are absolute, and their agents only answer to them, for the Officio Assassinorum is a force that answers to no one else. The Grand Master's role in the Senatorum is therefore one of great importance, for they wield the power of death itself, ensuring that the Emperor's enemies, seen and unseen, are eliminated with the swift and decisive force of assassins. The Grand Master, however, is not merely a figurehead. They are the ultimate arbiter of justice in a galaxy that is often lawless and corrupt, judging when the Emperor's armies must be silenced in the most final of ways. They command the Imperial assassins with cold calculation, each mission a carefully crafted work of art executed with the precision of a scalpel. But beneath this inscrutable exterior lies a mind that is unyielding and calculating. a leader who understands the power of their position and the necessity of the secrecy in their work. The Grand Master in the Officio Assassinorum is not merely a figure of terror. They are a key player in the shadowy political games of the Imperium, ensuring that the Emperor's will is carried out without question, no matter the cost or the toll it takes on those who serve them. I got to spin off this one with another question for you lads. How much over the 10 millennia do you think that the Imperial Creed has bled into the performance of these many different forms of assassins? Because it's not just gunners, it's not just killers, it's not just poisoners, it's not just super info nerds, infocytes.
Hmm.
There's many of them. How much do you think they're right now steeped in the Imperial Creed as a great motivator of their work?
By Imperial Creed, do you mean like kind of like the faith? How much faith is kind of put into it, or like?
Certainly, the Imperial Truth being the atheism that is the fedora tipping meme, and the Imperial Creed being the Imperium's internal view of what they call the Imperial faith from a relatively high level, very high level.
Yeah. Like that's an interesting question. They don't seem like super religious to me, or like typically when I picture assassins, it's cold and calculated, and it's not driven by religious means necessarily, although maybe it is. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I just feel like if you start getting too like this person deserves to die because the emperor said it, he needs to die, like, and you start attaching religious or political views to it, I don't know. I feel like they just kind of see the task at hand. They get their bill in the mail, and then they go do it. I Maybe I'd look at it more of like the job hitmen as opposed to like motivated by that means. What do you think about that question?
Yeah, that's how I've always seen the assassins. Whatever one we're talking about out of the four there, and possibly some other ones that just aren't even represented on tabletop. Um, Most of their hits are very well thought out by their higher ups, and like you said, it's literally here's your bill, go take him out, whatever time it is. Um, yeah,
I just don't see them like, when the Vindicator is about to pull the trigger on his sniper rifle. I don't see him as like muttering a prayer and like, this is for the Emperor and for all of mankind. It's like, this is the target. It needs to be eliminated. Boom, then pulls the trigger.
Yeah, because what Fuzz said there is pretty good, because one of the major things about them overall is that when the High Lords are in session, they very rarely speak. That is the Master of the Assassinorum, because in the days of Goj Vandire, or Goge Vandire, depending on how you want to say it, they were his militant right hand. They did a lot of damage, and they were a major part of him staying in power. Now they say as little as possible, as infrequently as possible.
Yeah. Like Purge is saying, I see it the same way as detachment from anything personal, including personal beliefs. Fuzz says, I think if religion got attacked, they wouldn't be as neutral of a force they're portrayed, in my opinion. Yeah, maybe, but yeah, every assassin's different, I suppose. But if I think I've had to weight it in one way or the other, I think it's more like here's a job, we're doing it. There's not like a lot of personal beliefs attached to the hits that they're taking.
and if I recall, some of these assassins have actually been used questionably traitorous against the Imperium. I can't recall the exact scenario, but yeah, they were sent out on someone from, if I'm not even mistaken, the High Lords of Terra.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, how many times has the Grand Master been approached by another High Lord of Terror with like an assassination plot? Like, hey, if we kill this other High Lord, we can become more powerful. And he's just like, I don't know about that, man. I don't think I care about your personal beliefs in this matter. I also don't care about the religious beliefs of this matter. Like, here's the facts. Here's what we should be doing.
Because within the Horus Heresy, we've seen a few games be played with who the true identity is of the various leadership of the various claves of the Assassinorum, and now also in current Imperial year, the High Lord of the not Administratum, Assassinorum himself, where you had at least one person who was guaranteed to be a fraud in that space, the other who was the true one. Who's who?
Yeah. Shadows and lies, secrets and half truths. Any other thoughts on this guy? Man, we got to do an Assassins episode. One of the great joys of bringing Lorehammer back is we do get to do an Assassin episode eventually. I don't know why I haven't done one yet, but we'll get there. There's one episode at a time.
Soon, TM.
Soon, TM.
That sounds shiny.
The next guy is the Master of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. The Master of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica stands as a figure of profound psychic power, their authority over the countless psychers that serve the Imperium, shaping the very foundation of its communications and operations. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica is the heart of the Imperium's psychic infrastructure, enabling instantaneous communication across the vast expanse of the galaxy through its network of astropaths. The Master commands this vast order of psychically gifted individuals, ensuring that the lifeblood of the Imperium, the flow of information, commands, and warnings, continues unabated. With the flick of their will, they oversee the training, deployment, and regulation of thousands of psychers, each one essential to the smooth functioning of the Imperium's immense bureaucratic machine. Their influence is vast, and their role is vital to the Imperium's ability to function in the grim, dark reality of the 41st millennia. However, the Master of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica power is not without its darker aspects. The psychers under their charge are often no more than slaves to the Imperium, their fates sealed from the moment they are recruited. The toll of psychic communication is great, and the strain placed on these individuals can lead to insanity or death, their minds often shattered by the unbearable pressures of their work. The Masters hold ultimate sway over this population, overseeing the rituals and processes that keep the astropaths functioning as they serve the Imperium's endless need for communication. Though their power is vast, it comes at a price. The sacrifice of countless psychers who live and die in service of the Imperium rarely sees the price they pay. The Master is both protector and overseer, holding a power that is as enduring and as inscrutable as and necessary, but an unseen force within the machinery of the Imperium. Yeah, without them, man, radio waves travel slow. Communication just wouldn't be possible. If you can't communicate, you'd never know where to send your armies and how to do all that kind of stuff. So another very powerful position. Makes sense he's in the top 9. And those were the top 9 right there. And you could talk about which one's actually the most powerful, and you could argue for days on that, and eventually the Assassinorum would be called to end the argument, but all of them have their place, and all of them have that permanent position. These 9 positions are considered virtually inviolable, with the only rarest moments in the Imperium's long history seeing the seats on the High Lords of Terra unoccupied without a successor, swiftly appointed from the same organization. The inquisitorial representative is a notable exception to this rigidity. Rather than being a fixed individual, this position is granted to whatever inquisitor is chosen to represent the Inquisition during the meeting of the Senatorum. On occasion, this role has even been filled by the eldest Grand Master of the Grey Knights, whose unique perspective is great value in times of crisis. Similarly, the position of Paternova Envoy is not tied to a single individual, but is held by the representative of the Paternova, of the ruling Navigator family. The Paternova himself remains within the Palace of Navigators, bound by ancient law never to leave its sacred confines. To safeguard against dangers and concentration of powers, the dominant Navigator houses traditionally agreed to elect a Paternova among the weaker houses, where a powerful house to gain control of both the Paternova's position and a seat on the Senatorum Imperialis, it could command not only the Navigator's influence with the Imperium, but also threaten the independence of all but the mightiest Navigator families. While the High Lords of Terra are supposedly composed of 12 seats, 3 of these positions are non-permanent. These temporary roles are typically filled by individuals drawn from among the Imperium's other most powerful leaders. Yeah, so now we got our rotating cast of people that can make it in and out.
So we'll jump into the Lord Commander of Segmentum Solar. Lord Commander of Segmentum Solar is a living embodiment of the Imperium's vast tutorial expanse, wielding command over the heart of mankind's dominion. Segmentum Solar is the position of immense power, the holder entrusted with strategic oversight over the Imperium's most critical region. The solar system, the cradle of humanity's eternal reign, lies with a few purview of this leader. From the seat of the Lord Commander ensures the defense of Terra itself, overseeing the coordinates of fleets, the deployment of Imperial Guard, and the safeguarding of the Imperial throne. Through their dominion is vast. Their gaze is fixed upon sanctity of the Imperial's homeworld, ensuring the unyieldly security against all threats, both internal and external. Though the Lord Commander's authority extends across entirely of Segmentum Solar, the office is rarely seen in public eye. Their decisions wrought through shadowed halls and concealed strategies. Their role is not only one of the military command, but of guiding the Imperial war machine with a cold, calculating precision, unburdened by the vagrancies of politics. The Lord Commander is figured is the Lord Commander is a figure forged in the fires of endless war, commanding not only fleets and armies, but the will of humanity's continued existence. Their name, through sacredly spoken in open council, reverberates through the annals of war. For they are the guardians of the very pulse of the Imperium.
Cool position, kind of just like, yeah, the solar system's guard, the soul segmentum's guardian in the solar system. Yeah, pretty straightforward, that guy. Just keeps kind of the heart of the Imperium safe. I can see why he wouldn't always be necessity, because the segmentum solar isn't always under invasion, so doesn't always need to be active. But if there's a huge incursion or something, yeah, you'd want to put him in kind of a higher position to kind of get more resources. But yeah.
What's more, they're some of the finest mortal warriors you will find in the Imperium, with very few exceptions, and the exceptions very much do prove the rule. These are the oh shit, something broke, hit that big red button with that fire axe as hard as you can troops.
Yeah, very cool.
The Lord Commander Militant of the Imperial Guard, shall we, gentlemen? That same Lord Commander Militant of the Imperial Guard stands as the supreme martial authority within the Astra Militarum, which is to say the Imperial Guard. Commanding legions of mortal warriors who are the shield and sword of the Imperium. Their position is one of unmatched gravitas and honor, for it is the Lord Commander who oversees the unyielding forces of humanity, driving them to distant worlds to battle against Xenos, heretics, and demons alike. Tasked with defending the Imperium's borders and crushing rebellion wherever it festers, the Lord Commander Militant represents the raw, uncompromising might of mankind. Their hands shape the tides of battle, their word a command that echoes through the vastness of the galaxy, through the oceans of the Imperium's blood, as they direct the endless war machines of the Astra Militarum with ruthless efficiency. I see it pulled up there mentioning a little thing from Fuzz. You want to say it?
This was just in regard to the segmentum solar guy. I bet he was active during the War of the Beast.
Oh, I believe it. That was very much an all-hands-on-deck experience. Though the Lord Commander Militant is often seen as the backbone of Imperial war efforts, their role is more than that of a mere general. Theirs is a legacy of sacrifice, commanding from the front lines, watching legions of human soldiers in lockstep fall into battle without flinching. They're the personification of the unyielding human spirit, where no matter the cost, the Imperial Guard will never falter. With their indomitable will, the Lord Commander Militant guides the Astra Militarum through the darkest times, holding the line against all that would seek to extinguish the Imperium's light.
Yeah, it is interesting that this wouldn't be a permanent position, but I guess you have other people that are like aware of what needs to happen and where the resources need to go. Like, and this guy is more just like he gets his orders from other people, even though he's the guy in charge of the militarum. Like, somebody else is telling him which planets are being invaded. There's other people out there.
My headcanon says that it's not a permanent position because the guy wants to be in the front lines and would shoot anyone who will keep him from it.
Yeah, now that's some good headcanon. The next guy we got is the Cardinals of the Holy Synod of Terra. The Cardinals of the Holy Synod of Terra stand as the spiritual heart of the Imperium, their voices carrying the will of the Emperor to every corner of the galaxy. From their exalted position, they direct the vast and varied cults of the Ecclesiarchy, shaping doctrine and interpreting the will of the Emperor. Their role is pivotal in ensuring that the faith of the Imperium remains unwavering. the guiding light of billions who worship the emperor as a god. The Holy Synod is a body of profound power, and its cardinals are both revered and feared. Their edicts shape the destiny of the Imperium as much as the High Lords themselves. Within the hallowed chambers of the Synod, every decision is a matter of faith, for their word is seen as the Emperor's own. The cardinals of the Holy Synod hold dominion over the Imperium's most powerful institutions, the Adeptus Ministorum, wielding influence that stretches to the farthest reaches of mankind's dominion. They are the eternal shepherds of humanity's soul, guiding the faithful with an iron fist and a deep understanding of the Emperor's divine will. In times of strife, the cardinals have been known to sway the course of history with their calls for crusades or destruction of heresy, inspiring untold zeal. Theirs is a responsibility not only to the Emperor, but to the very foundations of the Imperium itself, ensuring that the light of faith never flickers, even as the shadows of war and despair loom ever closer. This position kind of feels like a cheeky way for the church to get more power. You know, they almost have like 2 seats now, where they have the what was the other guy called? The Ecclesiarchy of the Adeptus Ministorum, and then they also have this. You know, you have the Pope, and then you have Cardinal. So they almost kind of get 2 seats sometimes.
Nobody does corruption quite like them either.
Yeah, isn't that the fun thing about all religious organizations, I find? Yeah, but this one, like where the other one almost seems like it's more guidance, or like, and maybe we'll just go with guidance for the minute. These guys seem like they're the ones actually writing the dictates of the Emperor, the actual like different faiths of decree, the different points that you have to follow and stuff. So maybe, you know, I think of like in real life times the Council of Nicaea. What is it called?
Yeah, Council of Nicaea.
Where, you know, they kind of formalize the Bible and stuff. You know, you get them together in times of crucial moment, like maybe they discovered a new passage the Emperor kind of wrote down, and you kind of get them together to write something for that moment and update everything. And then they kind of need to go away again.
And imagine trying to organize the Imperium by the lines that it's put itself into without having these guys around. Even if you want to try and get your Gilliman Age of Enlightenment, good luck organizing the High Lords without these guys and their puffy thrones.
Good fucking luck.
Well, and it's usually the church that like really amasses the rest of society to jump on board with it. Like, if you're not going to go see the Emperor when you die because you're not following the faith, really pushes everyone into it.
Yeah, hell of a motivator. Eternal damnation.
I'd rather just have my soul eaten by its lineage. But on that note, we'll keep moving along here. The Abyss of the Adeptus Sororitas. The Adeptus Sororitas is the supreme leader of the Sisters of Battle, a figure whose authority is both divine and martial. Cloaked in the sacred mantle of faith, the Abyss commands the most zealous of the Imperium's warriors, women who are bound by the oath to defend the Emperor's will through fire, blood, and unwavering conviction. Is one of blood, extraordinary power. The Abyss is not the only spiritual guide of the Adeptus Sororitas, but also their military commander, directing the sisters into the endless crusades against the enemies of mankind. The Abyss embodies the might of the Emperor's will, her word a decree of faith and fury, resonating across the galaxy, bringing holy wrath to the enemies of the Imperium. In her hands, the Abyss holds the fate of the Adeptus Sororitas, and under her command, their unstoppable force, purging heresy, Xenos alike. With a divine retribution, her role extends beyond that of a mere general, for she is the living vessel of the Emperor's power. Her faith is true strength that drives the Sisters of Battle into the fray. As the final arbiter of the faith within her order, the Abyss stands as a figure who commands not only the respect but unshakenly devotion. She leads by strength and unwavering belief in the purity of her soul. To cross her is to face wrath of the Emperor's incarnate.
It's interesting, man. Just another kind of church attached, another little power grab, I think, from the Ecclesiarchy, putting another person in charge here. Yeah, but having said that, the Adeptus Sororitas are also one of the biggest military organizations in the galaxy. You know, there are a lot of Sisters of Battle. Like, there's way more Sisters of Battle as there are Astartes, and there's not as much as there are Guardsmen, but there's a lot of them.
And I guess the nuttiest part is that they're very finest without genetic modification. They're up there with Astartes in terms of combat effectiveness. You don't even have to make up female Astartes. You got the
Yeah,
real
man,
deal
and they're
right
powered
here.
by faith. You know, they can block bullets with their faith points. Fucking tight.
Just anything that's overzealous in the 40k universe really stands true. It pretty much embodies the whole universe, whether it be uh, a crazy amount of genocide or just this undevout faith for this corpse sitting on a golden throne that hasn't moved in millennia.
Yeah.
Speaking of corpses not moving for millennium, how about we talk about their guards? Captain General of the Adeptus Custodes. He is a living legend, the leader of the Emperor's personal bodyguard and the highest ranking officer in the Adeptus Custodes. Chosen for their unparalleled strength, skill, and unwavering loyalty, the Captain General oversees the defense of the Emperor himself, ensuring that no harm ever befalls the sanctity of the Golden Throne. Their role is one of solemn duty, for they stand as the last line of defense for Terra and the Emperor, a bulwark against any who would dare threaten the heart of the Imperium. Their power is absolute in the Custodes, and they wield it with the quiet authority of one who stands in the shadow of the most sacred relic of mankind. In addition to their martial duties, the Captain General holds sway in the halls of the Senatorium Imperialis, offering counsel to the High Lords of Terra with the weight of centuries of experience and names behind their words. As the ultimate defender of the Imperium's throne, their loyalty is unquestionable, their judgment unquestioned. The Captain General of the Adeptus Custodes is not merely a protector of Terra's physical borders, but a symbol of the eternal endurance of mankind's empire. Their service is an honor and a privilege, and in their hands, the Emperor's will is upheld with unyielding devotion.
Question from Jax: could the Custodes technically overthrow the High Lords of Terra if need be? Yeah, for sure, man. Like, you're not going to argue with them. You can't argue with them. There's been a couple times where, like, I think it was when Brute Gilliman came back, he used the Custodes to kind of overthrow some of the High Lords of Terra. But even like we were saying with Goge Vandire, where they pretty much let the hit on Goge Vandire happen. So, they're you can't question them.
Well, you could say they had to set the hit up because they set up the people doing the hit with all the information they would not have otherwise have had to have the desire to shoot the guy in the first place. When they brought the sororitas into the Emperor's throne room, and we don't know what the lady saw, but it was enough to kill the guy.
Yeah, it was enough to turn her opinion. Going from a devout like fanatic to being like, oh yeah, no, I need to go kill that guy right now. Yeah, cool organization. Yeah, and once again, like I understand why these guys wouldn't have a permanent seat, even though they're like the Emperor's right hand men. If the Emperor is not under threat, if that Segmentum Solar is not being invaded, if Terra is not being invaded or something, if there's not a huge Black Crusade going on or something like that, they probably wouldn't care too much about what the High Lords of Terra are up to and need to
Do you
get
think a
involved.
lot of these
So.
temporary positions kind of domino effect? Like, obviously, if the solar segmentum is starting to be afflicted, obviously we're going to have the High Lord for that. But do you think it kind of works its way down the chain line?
Yeah. If they're massing a huge crusade and trying to get power and position, maybe they put one of the abbess of the Sisters of Battle in, of the Adeptus Sororitas, they're doing something holy like that, going on some massive religious crusade. But I don't think it's like an order, like if not this one, then this one, if not this one, then this one. I think it's more like what's needed currently, put those guys in.
Oh man, Grim, that idea goes hard. I'd love to see a fluff series, mini series on that idea. What would happen if you see a couple cracks here, a little bit of subversion there? Oh, I'd read that.
Political thriller. The next guys we have are the Chancellor of the Estate of the Imperium. Estate Imperium. The Chancellor of the Estate Imperium is a figure whose power is both inscrutable and absolute, the master of the vast bureaucracy that manages the monumental wealth and resources of the Imperium. This position holds dominion over the countless holdings of the imperial estates, an unyielding network of dominions that sustain the emperor's rule. The Chancellor is not simply a steward of material wealth. They are an embodiment of the imperial's logistical might, with the authority to allocate resources across the galaxy and to command the flow of imperial riches to all corners of humanity's dominion. Their influence extends into every aspect of governance, silently shaping the fates of worlds with a single decree. Their decisions are felt far and wide, though the machinations are veiled in secrecy, known only to those who hold the highest echelons of power. Despite their quiet and overwhelming dominance, the Chancellor remains a figure of enigma. Operating the shadow recesses of the Imperium's hierarchy, they are seldom seen and rarely heard. Their authority is an enduring pillar of the Imperial strength, yet is one that operates behind layers of veiled diplomacy and hidden corridors of influence. The Chancellor is often the unseen hand that guides the course of the Imperium's administration, managing its sprawling, intricate web of estates, holdings, and legacies. Though cold and calculated oversight, the Chancellor upholds the intricate machinery of imperial governance, ensuring the continuous flow of resources to those who will serve the Imperium's unyielding will. Yeah, like maybe these guys, after a crusade, these guys get appointed where it's like, okay, now we have all this new land and all this new wealth and resources, like, let's appoint this guy so we can kind of distribute it out a
Will
little
they
bit better.
eventually end up disbanding then, or do they just keep on making more? Because if you're making this expansion, and how far and few in between at this point that the Imperium does make a grand expansion, is it something that is kind of one of those temporary positions?
Yeah, like all these ones that we're doing now are just temporary. And how often do they really do these big grand pushes where you need to like these positions don't get disbanded. They just don't get seats on the High Lords, so they still have to then go petition the High Lords. So like after that big conquest, it's like, okay, now we have all these resources. We need to deal with them now, but then you kind of take him off the High Lords. He's still a position, still managing stuff. You still go to him and do stuff, but he just doesn't have that same power in the moment that he
It's
needs.
all in his head. So we're going to do the Speaker of the Charitus Captains. The Speaker of the Charitus Captains, a position both powerful and particular, embodying the voice of the myriad merchant fleets that traverse the vast reaches of the Imperium. The Charitus Captains, leaders of the vast fleets of merchant ships that ply stars, hold considerable sway, for they are the lifeblood of the trade communication and supply across the Imperium. The Speaker stands as an indeterminate or intermediate between these influential captains and the ruling body of the Imperium, a figure who carries their demands, grievances, and aspirations to the High Lords of Terra. While the Speaker's power may seem subtle, it is no less vital in the galaxy stretched thin by endless wars. The flow of commerce and materials is the impulse of the Imperium itself. In this role, the Speaker represents not just the interests of the Charitus captains, but their immense influence over the Imperium economy and logistics networks. The fleets commanded are the Ataris through which the Imperium's vast territories remain connected, and the Speaker ensures that these connections are maintained, and the merchants' need addressed. Through diplomacy and negotiation, the Speaker is force that can sway the decisions of the High Lords, bringing to bear the collective weight of the merchant fleets when necessary. Yet the Speaker's position is also precarious, for the merchant's nature of the Charitus captains seems both pragmatism and cunning, traits that ensure the Speaker's survival in a realm where where allegations shift like the tides of the void.
Yeah, it really is the really strange, really neat part where you so often forget that there is a merchant marine within the Imperium, and it is larger than, if memory serves, the Astartes fleets. It's comparable in size possibly to the Black Fleet, which is a hard maybe, or maybe to just the regular Imperial Navy's fleet.
Man, I would say it's even larger than that. Like armies are one thing, but every military organization would need these guys behind them. They're shipping all the food around. They're shipping all the resources. A new production of las guns have been made. Now these need to be shipped out. Oh, we just kind of made this new trade deal here. Like I think this is the biggest fleet out there now. Like they kind of are the unseen hand, and it's like when the Canadian Postal Service goes on strike. It's like no one gives a fuck who they are until they go on strike, and they're like, "Give us our mail." Like they just go unseen under the radar until you don't have them. Then things really start to hit the fucking fan.
If you're doing your job right, nobody notices. As soon as you start fucking up, everybody knows, and it impacts everyone on a very drastic scale, especially when we're talking across galaxy wide.
Yeah, yeah, I would say they have the biggest fleet for sure.
Then, gentlemen, on the additional side of that naval nonsense, we have the Lord High Admiral of the Imperial Navy, who is the unchallenged master of the most formidable fleet in the galaxy, an entity whose power is as vast and inexorable as the tides of space. Commanding the Imperial Navy, the Lord High Admiral sits at the apex of military power, tasked with ensuring the defense of the Imperium's countless worlds and the dominance of humanity across the stars. This position holds not only immense military authority, but the trust of the Emperor's will, for the Lord High Admiral is the final word on all things related to the Imperial Navy in the void, from the deployment of fleets to the strategy that shapes the defense of mankind's empire. Their fleet is not merely a weapon, it is the embodiment of imperial might. Under their leadership, it remains an unyielding force against the dark forces that threaten to consume humanity. The role of the Lord High Admiral is one forged in the crucible of constant warfare, for the Imperium is a realm of perpetual conflict. The Lord High Admiral's decisions are often the difference between victory and annihilation, and their authority extends beyond that of mere military command. They are a force of influence on Terra itself, their voice carrying weight in the Council of the High Lords, an authority capable of reaching so far as to seize civilian ships in times of need. A figure of unyielding endurance and inscrutable authority, the Lord High Admiral is a symbol of the Imperium's indomitable will, a force that will not bend no matter the storm that rages across the stars. Throughout the Imperium's vast history, it is a notable peculiarity that members of the Adeptus Astartes, humanity's most elite warriors, have seldom served among the High Lords of Terra. This is particularly striking given the foundation role of Rabuta Gilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, and the first Lord Commander of the Imperium in establishing the Senatorum Imperialis, that is, if you don't count Sanguinius and Imperial Secundus. Mark, should I continue?
Yeah, I was just gonna jump back to the Lord High Admiral of the Imperial Navy for a second. Uh, just to clarify, like the Navy and the Imperial Army are separate. The Guard and the Navy are different. So every time the Guard need to go somewhere, they need to petition people, and this guy allocates all those extra ships. The Astartes are in control of their own ships, and then we heard about the merchant class. They have their kind of own ships. But yeah, anytime the Guard need to go anywhere and do anything, they need this guy and his men.
This deliberate exclusion appears to have been Gilliman's design. That is to say that you don't often see such figures among the High Lords. He understood that in moments of dire need, the leaders of the Space Marines might be compelled to intervene, yet otherwise they should remain apart from the Imperium's political machinery. Some believe Gilliman's stance was influenced by the Emperor's original Council of Terra, which was distinct from his War Council, intentionally devoid of Astartes' involvement. Gilliman's vision is reflected in his Codex Astartes, which emphasizes that the Space Marine's sacred duty is to serve humanity rather than govern it. Cough, astral claws, cough, cough. In a belief that echoes the Emperor's own ideals. If you guys want to jump in there about the astral claws, I do quite love them a bit.
Yeah, that would be a fun chapter too. Man, there's too many good chapters. Fuck yeah, Lorehammer's back and doing 3 times a week. That means we can cover so much, man.
The Astro Claws are the ones that basically sacrifice themselves, right? That final stand, and now there's a couple kind of holding up where the ship had crashed.
The astral claws become
Chaos.
they're like yeah, they're the red corsairs or whatever, part of Luft,
Okay,
her and
I'm
Blackheart.
misnaming.
Um
My apologies.
yeah. Yeah, so they're in the maelstrom or whatever, and they start like a civil war nowhere near the scale of the Horus Heresy, but still a lot of Space Marine legions fall to them, or chapters, I mean.
Should I continue?
Yes, sir.
The Senatoris Imperialis has, over the millennia, endured countless upheavals and transformations. The inclusion of the Ecclesiarch following the recognition of the Adeptus Ministorum as the Imperium's sole state religion in the early 32nd millennium was one such change. It has also been annihilated entirely during the beheading, a massacre orchestrated by a vengeful Grand Master of the Officio Assassinorum and dissolved outright by the ruling Ecclesiarch during the Age of Apostasy. That's the Goge Vandire, by the way. In that time of brutal civil war, many High Lords have vanished under mysterious circumstances, prompting inquisitorial investigations. Ironically, it has been whispered that the Inquisition itself was responsible for those disappearances.
Checks out.
Well, you're not sketchy if you ain't Imperial, and you ain't Imperial if you ain't an Inquisition.
Why do all our investigators keep disappearing, and then the people we sent to go investigate the disappearances also disappear? What's happening?
Despite these relentless power struggles and internal strife, the High Lords of Terra have remained steadfast in their role, interpreting the will of the Emperor to guide the Imperium. Through all trials, they have upheld the rule of the galaxy's greatest empire.
Very cool. So that consists of the High Lords of Terra. Like we said, you have those. You have 12 chairs. 9 of them are pretty solid. Although there's been odd times where a chair drops here or there. And then you got those 3 rotating chairs. Depending on the time of need, you elect a new person to that chair. And then there's also, so like we said at the very beginning, we got like the upper echelons of the High Lords, where we have the Imperial Regent, the Lord Commander, the Chancellor. Then you got your 12 High Lords. Then you got your 9 primary, your 3 minor, and then you also have lesser lords. And let's jump into them and see what they're all about. The institution of the Senatorum Imperialis is guided by the Chancellor of the Imperial Council, a position of immense power and influence. Though not included among the High 12, the Chancellor acts as a chief bureaucrat overseeing the vast workings of the Senatorum and ensuring its function in service to the Imperium. Though not officially a High Lord, the Chancellor holds a significant sway. Their role, providing access to the highest echelons of power within the Imperium. Their presence within the Council marks them as a crucial figure, shaping the course of the Imperial governance with unparalleled reach. Beyond the High Lords, there exist lesser lords who hold full membership within the Senatorum Imperialis, though they do not share in the esteemed rank of the 12. These lords, while not occupying the most exalted position, still wield considerable authority and power. Their participation in the workings of the Senatorum ensures that even those outside the core of the High Lords maintain a voice in the vast bureaucracy of the Imperium. Together, they form a complex web of power, each playing a role in the delicate balance of the rule that sustains the Emperor's realm. I wonder, we're running low on time here. We're getting deep into an episode. I think a couple of these we could almost sum up, while other ones we might go and read. Like the very first one up, the Commandant of the Schola Progena. I think most of us are pretty familiar with the Schola Progena, which is the school for orphans. And, they send Imperial Guards orphans there to get trained as commissars, scions. Sisters of Battle will also sometimes be taken from here. So this guy just kind of oversees that. So, yeah, pretty cool position. Makes sense that this kind of would be not a High Lord and not even in those alternating ones, but definitely a high position of authority. Maybe Nemo, if you want to read the Lord Constable of the Synopticon. That name is not as obvious. So let's learn about that guy.
Sounds good. Lord Constable of Synopticon holds dominion over the vast and intricate web of intelligence, surveillance, and control that ensures the Imperium remains one step ahead of its enemies. They are the unseen hand guiding the flow of information, the master of spies and informants who maintain the pulse of the Imperium, from the lowest hive to the highest echelons of power. Their authority is vast, extending across worlds, systems. Their influence is felt in every whisper, every shadow. The Synopticon is the lifeblood of Imperial security, a machine of knowledge and secrecy. Its Lord Constable as its ceaseless, calculating mind. Their role in the Senatorum Imperialis is as much about power as silence. The Lord Constable is often a figure of quiet authority, inscrutable and rarely seen, yet their actions resonate in the halls of power. They are the unseen force that bends the will of those who might dare to challenge the Emperor's reign. In a galaxy riven with threats from within and without, their vigilance ensures the continued survival of the Imperium. The Lord Constable watches, listens, and intervenes when necessary, a shadow in the dark, ever present, yet never fully known. Their vigilance is the bedrock upon which the Imperium's survival rests.
Yeah, like that makes sense. Like you have your inquisitors who look after like matters of faith, like we said. Then you have your arbites who look after matters of law, but you still need to know what's going on. Like whether it's good or bad, you still need to know what's happening, especially with like Xenos. What's happening with that Xenos empire over there, or that human empire that we've yet to kind of conquer? This guy kind of keeps track of that. Up next, we have the Mistress Plenary of the Catacombs, and to sum this one up, it's her role in the Senatorum Imperialis is not merely ceremonial. She is the living link to the honored dead, the custodian of their memory and the power they once wielded. So just kind of like an honorary kind of make sure the fallen get represented, I suppose. She guards the sacred remains of the Emperor's fallen servants. Like there's whole planets that are, dedicated to heroes and stuff. If your body isn't being turned into corpse starch, you might actually get a nice little funeral plot. Um, I don't see her as the most powerful position, but fuck, man, there's a lot of dead bodies, just as many as there are living. So you got to have somebody do something with them. The next one we have is the consul preeminence of the Navis Nobilite, and
Nobility.
Nobility. Navis Nobilite. The council preeminence of the Navis Nobilite commands the vast and intricate network of the navigator houses, the ancient and powerful families who guard the Imperium ships through the perilous warp. Their position is one of immense power, as the navigator's ability to navigate the warp is vital to the survival of the Imperium. The council preeminence holds sway over the destinies of entire fleets. I'm trying to figure out why and how this one is different than the other Navis guide that we got. This guy is more than just political. It is recognition of the navigator's indispensable role in the Imperium survival. So maybe this is just like another one of those, like we talked about the Ecclesiarchy getting another seat for power reasons. Maybe this is just kind of another one of those. A power broker and guardian of the Imperium's ability to reach across the galaxy.
Maybe he's the master of fuel bills.
Rocks are not free, citizen. There's a deep meme for those who get it. The next one we'll talk about is the Chirurgeon General of the Order Hospitaller, which is the medical branch of the Adeptus Sororitas. So they're responsible for overseeing the care and preservation of the Imperium's warriors and citizens. They are the supreme healer, tending to the wounded and the sick. Another one, like, it makes sense. Like, these lesser lords, you could come up with 1 billion lesser lords. That chamber has 1 million seats in it. So you could find 1 billion of them. I don't really see this guy as that important. Sure. Would you guys have any takes on it? Did they speak to you in any way? No? Okay. The next one we have is the High Lord of the Imperial Chancellery. This guy seems just like a helper for the Adeptus Administrorum guy, the Master of Administrorum, just kind of another helper, paperwork pusher. Yeah, it just seems like another paperwork pusher, essentially. And with that, we fucking got through all of them. The first 9 are very cool. You got some very cool ones in there. You know, the next ones are pretty neat as well. You got some custodes in there and stuff. You got assassins. You got the inquisitors. A lot of them make sense why they would be where they are. Yeah, what do you guys what do you think your favorite one was?
I like whatever lets me waffle on infinitely. Because one of my favorite things to do for Warhammer is ramble. It's part of the reason why I've enjoyed just being a guest.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's always another little trail you can go down. And like even compiling the notes for this episode, I learned a lot about just fucking how the Imperium actually operates. We always joke about the administratum that happens and all that administration paperwork, but like, yeah, knowing who's actually in charge of what and why they got put there and all that, it's pretty neat. Um, Speaking of guest call-ins, I kind of rushed the last ones because I would rather have a guest call-in or two. And you know, so if you want to go read about those guys, maybe just go read yourself and get some information. But I think we'll do some call-ins here. I put a link in the chat, and yeah, Grim, what was your thoughts? Did you have a favorite guy here?
I'm probably gonna have to go with the Assassinorum. They're just so versatile, and they almost seem like they don't hold any true allegiance, other than to whatever hit they're given. Um, so I do really like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, yeah, they're not driven by political ambition or like by religious fervor or anything like that. So they just like killing things.
I mean, we're in 40k. That's what you want to do. You just want to kill and commit genocide.
Cool. We got some people hopped in now. Fuzz, welcome. I'm gonna click you to the stage here. Welcome back to the show. I see you holding a Tau tank.
Yeah, yeah. Here, I'm gonna drop my brush in the paint so it doesn't dry. Yeah, I'm working on what's gonna be the base for a Skyray gunship.
Nice. Now I don't want to say it's yellow just in case the camera is giving off a weird tinge, but it looks very yellow.
It is very yellow. Yeah, I've
Yes.
figured out a decent way to do it. I got a light yellow, just normal rattle can of spray paint that I do as my base coat, and then do like a nice thin layer of like demonic yellow over it. And so far, it's working really, really well.
Yeah, it looked very nice. Very crisp. Yeah, it's funny. I found that was the best way to paint white. Like, oh, how do you paint white? I'm like, just spray paint the bitch white. What are we doing?
Right. Yeah, same thought that I had.
I will always see the models and the making of them and the painting of them and the care that goes into it as incredibly neat.
It's my probably it's what got me into this 'cause I started with like painting miniatures for like tabletop D&D,
Okay.
and I got my first miniatures for Warhammer 40k for doing a tabletop 40k game. But like as I've dove into the lore, just like world building and lore and that kind of just tangential to storytelling.
Yeah, yeah, the painting definitely is fun. It's one of those things where it might seem a little more daunting than it really is, but painting is just a lot of technique and knowing color palettes and stuff. Like we said, you know, if you're trying to
Mhm.
paint yellow, spray paint the fucking bitch yellow. And if you want to be an advanced guy, spray paint it
Yeah.
like pink, I think is the color you want to paint, and then you build up to yellow.
I was just gonna say that's the back set that you want to have is the pink.
Yeah, pink I've seen, and orange as well. I've seen people use for like that
Yeah.
base color.
Yeah, but you know, once again, like that's once you know that, and now you know that, it's not a matter of difficulty. It's just a matter of knowing that technique or the proper painting style. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah. But anyway, High Lords of Terra. This was super fun episode to listen to. I knew like a very base level understanding of them, obviously, like as that sort of highest council of the Imperium, but like in a few of the positions, like I knew there was like the Inquisitor and the Assassinorum positions on there, but all the other ones were really neat to learn about.
You knew about the two that wanted to kill everyone, and that was all. You're like, don't want to mess with those guys.
Weirdly, yes, because like so. Slightly quick reference back to like the tabletop 40k RPG. I was playing an Inquisitor acolyte, so I did a bunch of digging into the different Inquisitor positions, and them having the seat on the High Lords of Terra was one of the things that I discovered through that research.
Yeah, we briefly mentioned all the different ordos and the minor ordos. Do you have a favorite minor ordos off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Well,
I have to go back and listen to that one again to get a refresher.
yeah.
It was a good one.
Okay. What was your favorite one that you learned about?
Um, I probably I guess of the top 9, the Mechanicus one. Why is the name?
The Fabricator General.
Yes, thank you,
Man,
Fabricator
there's a
General.
billion different fucking names to try to remember, and honestly, you probably have more important things to remember, so it's all good.
Arguably, yeah. But yeah, just because I love that, like you were saying, they have the seat on this council of the Imperium while not fully being under the Imperium's rule, and just such an important partner and player in the galactic game for them that they you really can't not give them a seat for all of this high level decision making.
Yeah.
Oh, a true machine uprising if you don't give him one.
Exactly, it's like, oh well, I guess we're not gonna build any of your Titans. We're not gonna fabricate your las guns anymore. I guess
Yeah,
sucks
the
to suck.
Imperium without Mars and all the Forge worlds, it's nothing.
Oh yeah, like oh sure. And like with like the minor ones too is interesting. Like the merchant fleet one, the speaker for the Chartists was something I had never heard of and never would have even thought of the Imperium having a civilian merchant fleet. I would have assumed it would all have been wrapped up under some part of the Imperial Navy, just because that is such a prominent part of the Imperium is its military might and its military strength. And it, even with like the Ecclesiarchy, they have their own military might, and so I'm sure they have their own military ships. Um, and so, and with how kind of everything it does seem to revolve around the military aspect of it, the military logistics. So whatever you're shipping can kind of come back around to a military purpose, whether you're shipping people or food or equipment. The Astra Militarum would be involved in it somehow. So that's why but having that merchant fleet almost like sort of like a subsect of rogue traders is kind of what it seems like in my mind. Like the rogue traders would almost be like the top of the merchant marines of the Imperial Navy, and then you'd have if you guys have ever like seen The Expanse, thinking about like those individual cargo freighters and stuff just flying through the void of space.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like the Imperium has a million worlds, and
Hmm.
900,000 of those million worlds, they're not at war. And they're just living
Yeah.
life. Like even on our own planet, there are some countries that are just embedded in war and others that are just peaceful and just living their life
Hmm.
as if nothing happened.
So here's what I was thinking about when talking about like the merchant fleets. Are they traveling through the warp, or are they strictly traveling just through like at light speed, the slowness of light speed within 40K?
I would imagine both. You have your local fleets where it's like solar system based, more like the
Hmm.
Expanse and what you were talking about there. But then, yeah, you also have those vast galactic jumps where, yeah, you're moving resources from system to system.
Okay, yeah. So then again, the navigator houses are getting involved
Hmm.
with that. The Astra Telepathica is going to be getting their hands into that pie as well,
Yeah.
and just kind of how thinking about like how all of them are intertwined and where they would be at odds with each other is just super interesting.
Yeah. And just the different levels of power structure or power plays that would
Hmm.
be going on. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was thinking about the Assassinorum, and obviously, like there was like the big examples, like the beheading, where the Grandmaster of the Assassinorum just was like, "Okay, well, all of you just gave me the middle finger. Time to just remove all of your heads." But like in general, I was thinking about what would it take to get the Assassinorum to agree to a contract to kill from like one High Lord to get them to kill another High Lord, and it would have to be to me the present a really good argument to that Grand Master of this is how this High Lord's death is going to benefit the Imperium.
Or perhaps it is a favor owed.
Favor owed, I think would definitely be a part of it. But I don't think that it would be, again, in general. I think they would have to have a good reason to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, because if it comes back on them, it's not going to be good. And yeah, like
Mhm.
yeah, who would you want to go to? I remember reading I forget which book it was, but where I think it was Nemesis in the Horus Heresy, where the Assassinorum guy and the leader of the Custodes were talking about getting assassination teams together and just plotting and scheming. And I think that would be
Mhm.
like, you know, if somebody comes to you with an assassination hit, you probably are going to talk to the Custodes and be like, "What do you think about this?" Like,
Yeah, and I'm imagining like any of the schools of assassins working with a group of custodies on a hit on somebody. Just you're not stopping that. There's just nothing you can do.
yeah, yeah. I can't wait for the assassin episode and get kind of more information on like maybe we'll be able to answer that question when I compile some notes and stuff.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah, yeah. Any other thoughts before we jump to the next guest?
No, I'm good. Yeah, I know you guys are pressed for time, so get on to the next guy.
All right, thanks, Fuzz. Appreciate it. All right, and calling to the stage, we got Jax. Hey, welcome back.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Killer, man.
Hey,
Hey,
it's
man.
Jax.
How's it going, everybody? Hey, Nemo, hey, Grimaldus.
So, look at all you three people that I met in a chat at one point, and now you've been on episodes, full episodes. Ain't that cute? Wow, we brought the whole
Friend
band together.
Hammer.
Friend Hammer.
The Heretic Squad.
Yeah.
Maybe one of these days we'll get Mark to join us in one of our little gaming sessions. And a little plug to the Discord channel. All of the people you're listening to me speak to through Mark, through you, well, we all ran into each other at one level or another in that Discord channel, on voice there.
I love that, man. Yeah, I wish I had more time to do some things, but you know, doing 3 episodes a week, it's a fucking grind sometimes. I read a lot of notes, as you can see. I Grimaldus, we were talking before the show. Sorry, Jax, to kind of just ignore you for a second, but you're welcome to partake. But Jax was talking about when I sent him the episode notes, he's like, "Holy fuck, I didn't realize there was this much back end to it."
Yeah, it's a little daunting, and being as illiterate as I am, as you guys all got to see, um, yeah, it's rather impressive, and I'm very grateful that you're able to put out all this content for us nerds to listen to.
Fucking love it, boys. I'm honored that you let me. So, yo, Jax, what was your favorite High Lord? What'd you get out of the episode? If you were put in a position of power, which position would you want to be put in?
To answer your first question, the coolest one has got to be the Custodes. Like, imagine you just some like a random High Lord, like 1 to 12. You're a pretty big deal. No, you know, um, you're like ready to sit down and do some business, and this 12-foot tall demigod of war, clad in gold armor, shows up and is like, "Hello, my fellow High Lords. This is what we're doing today."
What's that? You disagree? He's like tapping his power glaive. Like, I don't think you should disagree with me, actually.
He just reaches up, breaks his neck, and is like, "Oh, what happened?"
That's if you can even see the guy, because quite often in the fluff, if a person is capable of even noticing a Custodes standing there, is a feat into itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like snap your neck at like the speed of light, and it's like, "Oh, High Lord's been murdered. It was the assassin guy."
Yeah, the custode's definitely cool. What else did you take away from this episode, or?
I didn't know High Lords could get elected, which is cool.
Yeah. That's
Kind of
a
neat.
couple standard, and then a couple rotating, and then even a couple lesser. And by a couple lesser, man, like I was saying, that Senatorum chamber could be 1,000,000 strong. So how many lesser lords are really out there?
Yeah. And what was your second question again? Like something about power?
If you could be elected to one of these positions, which one would you want to try to helm?
Well, if I could, I want to be the custodian one, but
You're too old for that, unfortunately. Yeah, at this point.
dag nabbit. Um, but yeah, like definitely one of the higher ups. Like you're gonna get like probably assassinated at one point if you're not careful. But like having that power for like the day could really mess up someone's day that you really don't like.
Yeah. um, yeah, there's some interesting ones for sure. It was funny going through this and just like, oh, so that's how many ecclesiarchical seats there are. A whole bunch compared to everyone else.
Yeah, like there's so much to it for like the High Lords where it's like these are this is like effectively the ruling body of the Imperium. And it's like, oh, it's like the Emperor, like during the Great Crusade, he wanted just like regular people to do. And it's like, no, you have custodians, assassin guys. You got like the fucking High Priest of Mars,
The Arbites guy
who's
there.
been around for like
The
ten
best of
thousand
the
years.
best of the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. And then you have Bill.
Bill Bootlicker. He's here because he's a yes man. And we like that around here.
You'd think they'd have an army of servitors just for tongue polishing them boots.
What other thoughts do we have? I don't have any questions on this one.
Shame.
Shame.
I got a question for you. How have you managed to be on any High Lords you want question this long without mentioning Conrad Kurz for High Lords? Because we all know your proclivities there, my dude.
Heresies aside, no, this is a pure fact. If Conrad Kurz was a High Lord, there would be no crime in the Imperium, period.
Yeah.
The Imperium would be a better place. Just make sure you don't loiter.
Yeah, so Kurz for the Adeptus Arbites rule.
Yeah.
God dang.
It's like, don't drop that wrapper.
Littering is a felony offense. That's the death sentence. Yeah, so we have different styles of Warhammer. We have like your standard kind of Warhammer. We have that Warhammer Kids Adventure that they got. We got Warhammer horror books. Do we need more Warhammer political theater books, political dramas based on these
Oh
characters?
yeah. Like imagine like a Game of Thrones, but like 40K,
There we go.
where it's like Game of Thrones, but even more grimdark somehow.
Yes.
The Night Lord, what are they? Like the Night King? What is that his name? Uh, Whoever that guy is. He's just a gene stealer, and he's just a thing they have to deal with every Tuesday.
Fuck. When you get beheaded, you get turned into a servo skull and still have to serve on the council. Fuck.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is the certainty of servo skull taxes.
No. Cool. Well, yeah. Any closing thoughts? If not, we'll wrap this episode up.
Always great. So subscribe to the Patreon if you haven't already. Join me and Grimaldus for Tabletop Simulator 40K if you haven't heard of it already. My Necrons will win one day, Grimaldus.
Yeah, and if you don't know how to play, you two are teaching people how to play and to use Tabletop Simulator too. So if you feel like there's an obstacle to entry because of that, like don't worry, these guys are willing to help put in some time and get you up to
We're
speed.
starting with like 1,000 points apiece. Maybe we'll jump it up to 15. But just to keep it small, get the rules firmed out relatively quick, just so we can get some time under our belt.
Very cool. Love it. Very cool. All right. Well, thanks, Jax, for calling in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.
Cheers, man.
All right. Well, that was a episode of Lorehammer. Closing thoughts, boys. Thanks for joining me. It was fun. Like I said, man, it's so cool that we have this active chat room now where I'm able to fully my goal was to talk to as many people as possible about 40K, and now I feel like I've added 2 more to my talk list.
Oh, wow. And even if you let me ramble on for even longer, who knows how many more completely unrelated side topics we can dredge up from the depths of my absurd recollections. I don't even know where I keep this information.
In those data banks.
Yeah. Lots of data banks the size of a hab block. Yes, sir.
Grim, I gotta learn those rules off you so I can just chill and just think about dice instead of chapters.
I mean, that's where I got into the hobby. Like, I only just recently got into the lore. But yeah, anyone who wants to join in on tabletop, we'll teach you, we'll get you learned, and
Yeah, a lot of fun. So go join the Lorehammer Discord. Also, I do another show, Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. You probably heard me say it now a bunch of times, but I read people's homebrew. So maybe, hey, if Jax and Grimaldus write a story about one of their battles, we'll read it off on that. Nice little homebrew. Nice little way to do that. So go check out the Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. And shout out to our Patreon members. There has been no Patreon members this time because actually this is my second podcast I've recorded today. So it's only been an hour since my last one, so no Patreon members since then. But honestly, our Patreon membership has been growing a lot. Lots of new members. Like I said, there's a bunch of new kind of ways to get involved on the show with Patreon, whether it's the live stream, whether it's like the Spotify RSS feed, or just supporting the show because you want to see it thrive. Either way, any money is always appreciated. And it's Christmas time too, so if you want to throw us a little Christmas bonus, that's super appreciated. You can just go to the links in the description below, and it'll have like a little donate link there. So Nemo and Grimaldus, thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having us.
Top of the evening to you, my good host.
And we'll see you all on the next episode of Lorehammer. Adios.